Okay, I appreciate everybody taking a seat and quiet it down. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome everyone. This is the 12th annual Trail Summit that we've been hosting here in Haverford Township. My name is Brian Barrett. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation for Haverford Township, and we're happy to host you here today at our Community Recreation Environmental Nature Center. We started hosting this summit in 2013, the year after we opened this facility, and we thought this was an appropriate location because of the trails that we have here behind the facility. There's 120 acres of open space that includes 5 miles of trails. The Haverford Township Parks and Recreation Department, the Friends of Haverford Trails, began this, and the twin goals were to highlight and discuss trail, cycling, and walking initiatives within Haverford Township, and also to inspire and promote similar initiatives to our neighboring communities. Over the years, momentum grew, and this transformed into Philadelphia Western Suburbs Trail Summit. With the support of Delaware County Council and Delaware County Trails Alliance, the summit grew in 2021 to encompass all of southeastern Pennsylvania and the vicinity. Today's summit will focus on on-street, bicycling, pedestrian improvements, and plans throughout the western suburbs of Philadelphia. Each year, the summit reviews progress from the previous year, identifies opportunities to improve walking and biking, and prioritizing and plans continuing trail connections in our communities. I want to introduce the people who organized today's event. We have Peter Puglianese and Rich Kerr of Haverford Trails, and Elaine, the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation for Haverford Township. So we give them a round of applause for organizing this event. Haverford Trails Friends Group has been very instrumental in what's happened here in Haverford Township and the progress we've made with our trails, our biking, our connectivity. Peter and Rich have been working and have been very important to the citizen advocacy that's happened here in Haverford Township. They have been invaluable in developing our trail network, applying for grants, and leading volunteers as we blazed our trails over the last 15 years. Haverford Township is very fortunate to have a very robust trails group. I also want to introduce a few of our Haverford Township commissioners that are here today. We have Judy Trombetta in the back there, I think. Judy, if you could wave. Judy is the vice president of our Board of Commissioners. And we also have Jerry Hart, our 8th Ward Commissioner. Jerry's been very instrumental. He's been attending all these trail summits from the beginning. Jerry's also can be found at our volunteer days 2 or 3 times a month, helping clean invasives, working with the trails, so we really appreciate his work. I'm also going to introduce the Vice Chair of County Council, Elaine Schaefer. She's going to be our first speaker. Elaine started coming to these trails when we started back in 2012, these trail summits. She was a Radnor commissioner at the time and advocating for trails in Radnor. And over the years, as she went on to County Council and Delaware County have been very instrumental in advocating for trails in our area through the Delco Greenway and Trails program. A lot of the projects you'll hear about today, some of them have been funded through money through that trail program, so that's very important to all of us. So now I'm going to hand you off to Elaine for her introductory remarks.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you so much for hosting this and all the work that goes into it. Before I start, I want to pile on to the thanks to Rich and Pete for not just putting this together, for running the Delco Trails Alliance and all the work that has gone into this. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm on County Council. I go to a lot of events, and I gotta tell you, this is my favorite event of the year, every single year. And that is because I leave here so inspired every year of all of the great work and the great people that are doing this work. And I look around this room and I see so many people who I see here every single year. And that is because you are inspired too by the work that is getting done. And I gotta say, Lord knows we need the inspiration because building trails is really hard. It's hard work. You have to persevere, you have to be patient, you have to deal with the railroads. It's hard. And you all in this room are the people who are doing it. We all know that no trail ever gets done unless there's a champion. There's a champion behind it who is dogging it. And you guys are the people dogging it. So thank you for all of the work that you do. It's all worth it. Everyone in this room knows how worth it is, because once that trail gets opened, it becomes the gem of your community. It becomes where people meet, where people recreate, where it makes our town safer. Contrary to some people's it makes places safer and more valuable. It becomes the hub of your community. And we all know that. We all know the value that the trails bring to our communities. And that's why we work so hard to make it happen, even though it's hard. Now, the last 4 years have been pretty good in Delaware County. We've been lucky. Our leadership at County Council believes, and we've invested in that belief. We've invested a lot of money in the last 4 years in the Delco Greenways program, in purchasing the largest forested land left in Eastern Delco, in really putting our money where our mouth is. We have built up a planning department that is not compared anywhere. The most amazing expertise in our planning department right now in the trails realm. Also, over the last 4 years, a pandemic happened, and one of the very few silver linings of that was that, we had a lot of people join the ranks of the crazy trail people. And now we are much more, we're a bigger movement now. So things are good. I want to say that we're at a crossroads right now in Delaware County. The funding that was so abundant over the last 4 years has been allocated. And we have competing demands that are pushing out the ability for us to continue funding. So we need more money. And County Council is considering putting a ballot question, a referendum question on the ballot this November, 9 months from now, that will ask the voters, do you want more money for trails and are you willing to pay for it? If that passes, we're all good. All of our projects will move forward. If it doesn't, we're gonna be in a bad way for funding. So, everyone in this room, I thank you so much for all the work that you have done for our trail systems. I thank you for what you're doing right now, but I especially thank you for the next 9 months when you are going to be working hard to make sure that that ballot question is answered with a resounding yes. So I think next, should I do the introduction or? Okay. Yeah. All right, thanks so much.
Thanks, Elaine. She always gets me excited when she speaks. Our next speaker is from she's the director of the Delaware County Planning Department, Gina Barrett. Hi, Gina.
Good morning, and thank you all, and thank you, Councilman Schaefer, for your support and advocacy. We really are lucky to have someone so passionate and has so much expertise and brings it to all of our trail projects, but all of our projects really in the planning department across the board. So thank you to everyone here as well for all of your advocacy and all of your work on trails throughout our county. Oops, find my clicker. All right, so today, I do also want to thank all of my staff who's here as well, and we also have several consultants here. Without them, none of this would be possible. This is my second time speaking at the Trail Summit. Last year was my first year, and I had only been with the department for a few months at that time. So now I'm excited to share what we've been working on this past year, and also the really exciting plans we have going forward. There's some really good stuff to talk about today. So I do have kind of a long, it's not working. Okay, so it's a bit of a long agenda, but hopefully we'll run through it quickly, and do want to just note a few things on here, starting kind of at the big picture, and then kind of moving down into project-specific information. So we are starting to do an update on our county comprehensive plan. Obviously, that's the biggest picture that we have, and that's just in the works. We're doing internal conversations right now on schedule. It'll probably be an 18-month to 2-year process. and also on the public outreach and public engagement strategy. So hopefully in the next several months, you'll start hearing more about it. You'll start being able to engage, provide your input on what you would like to see in the county. So I just wanted to mention that. Also, the active transportation plan, there is another session later on about that, so I'm not going to get into the details on that, but I just want to note, I think a lot of you may have already seen, but out in the hallway, there are boards, there's information. You can provide your input on where you would like to see trails or where sidewalks need to be put, things like that. So please, during the break or whenever you get a minute, check those boards out and provide your input, and then you can listen to the presentation later on in this session to talk more about what that active transportation plan actually looks like. So then we're going to move into sort of the meat of our projects. So if you can go to the next slide. So just want to talk a little bit about priorities, because funding is limited, capacity is limited. So how do we prioritize? As everyone knows, we are a densely populated county. We have a lot of urban areas, and as you move closer to Philadelphia and also closer to the river, we also have a lot of under-resourced communities as well. So this just shows the number of people below the poverty level. So the brighter the color, the more people below poverty. If you can go to the next one. Similarly, if you look at pretty much any kind of map, it does show a similar trend. So this is the DEP environmental justice areas, and it shows similarly that those communities along Philadelphia and the river are environmental justice communities, and that goes into our priorities. And then if you add that in to safety, so the next one is a heat map. It shows the number of crashes throughout the county, and so the brighter the color, the more crashes there are in an area. And you see a similar trend there. So those same communities, the EJ communities, are also areas where safety concerns are also higher. So when we're looking at priorities, we think of three main things: sustainability, safety, and equity. And I also do want to mention that we also just put out earlier this year a sustainability plan for the county. So if you haven't seen that yet, please check that out as well. But that's sort of how we prioritize, and that'll come into play as we talk about different projects, and also as we talk about some of our trail projects and trail priorities. So just kind of setting the stage on that. So if you can, and that leads us into our Vision Zero plan. So what is Vision Zero? It's kind of a nondescript term, but it's a project to reduce traffic-related fatalities and serious crashes to zero within the county, which is a pretty lofty goal, right? It's not an easy thing to do, particularly for a county, because we don't actually own any of our roads, right? The roads are either owned by PennDOT or by the local municipalities. So why are we even doing this? And it's really to help municipalities and PennDOT be able to access additional funds through the Safe Streets and Roads for All program, which if municipalities sign on to our plan once it's complete, they can go after some of that money. And also we can then use it as a tool to advocate for safety improvements with PennDOT throughout the county. So if you can go to the next slide. So what are the guiding principles for Vision Zero? It's acknowledging that deaths and serious injuries are preventable. It looks at a safe systems approach, so it's not just a responsibility of the driver, but it's a responsibility of also the system to make sure that crashes are reduced. That roads should be safe for everybody, no matter if you're walking, biking, rollerblading, however you're getting around, it should be safe for you. And that community input, which is important for all of our projects, it's one of our number one priorities, is to ensure that we are reaching out to the community. So that's also a feature of Vision Zero, and that safety improvements should be proactive, but also they don't have to be expensive. There are some really easy, quicker ways to improve safety that doesn't have to be expensive. Some of them will be, but not all of them have to be expensive. And that streets and neighborhoods with the highest need will be prioritized. We can go to the next. So we're also working with Alta Planning and Design on this particular project, and they've developed these corridors of concern, which are the sections of roadway with the highest crash rates and have the greatest transportation safety need. Right now, there are 28 miles that have been identified as corridors of concern throughout the county. And the map there shows it. We also have all this information on our website too, so if you want to take a closer look, you can definitely do that, and we can get you links and all of that to that information. So taking this, now what do we do with it? So if you go for our report, we've been working on this since September. I will say it says June. It might get pumped out a little bit more towards the end of summer, August probably, as of now. But that's because of the community engagement we've been working on for this particular project. It's been very extensive and really, really educational. So we've been doing focus groups, both virtually and in person, if anyone is interested and has a group that they would like to talk to, have us talk to about safety, please let us know. We've also done a lot of, in the fall particularly, we did a lot of events. We were at Haverford Township Day, all the different township days or fall festivals throughout the county, talking to people about safety, getting their input. And then one of the really interesting features of this program is what we're calling our safety ambassadors. So that's a group of residents, here's all of their shining faces, they're residents of the county that are going out talking to people throughout the county or in the corridors of concern. They've all been given certain corridors of concern to focus on, but to engage in a deeper way, to make sure that we're getting all of the voices in those areas at the table. So you can see where they're from. If you're curious who may be the safety ambassador for your area, please let us know. We can definitely connect you. I know we have a couple of our safety ambassadors here today. They are an energetic, a committed group of people who are really, really keen to see safety improvements. So I've been really, really impressed with the work they're doing. They've just got started, but they really hit the ground running. And we have a training actually this afternoon with them as well to do a walk audit of their to teach them how to do walk audits of their corridors of concern. So just a really exciting thing, a pilot program for us, and we want to see how we can utilize that going forward. Is this a model we can replicate elsewhere? So now we're going to switch gears. A lot of different things today. So one of the things that we've been working on this past year is our new county park at the former Don Guanella property. And this was a concept plan that was initially developed and presented at a public meeting last year. Just shows some of the concepts that could be incorporated onto that site. The focus would be preserving the forested and the woodland areas, restoring stream banks, and then concentrating any kind of development in areas that have already been disturbed, so we're not pushing further into any forested areas. And the concept is called community in nature. So you can interact at a comfort level that you have. Some people will want to go all the way, do all the trails. Some people might just want to go and have a seat on a park bench and have a cup of coffee with a friend. But whatever you're looking for, you could hopefully find it here. And one of the other things we did this year is our Name the Park contest, which was very, very successful. We had over 515 names submitted from people across the county. Really thoughtful names. I think what I was more impressed with, the number, but also just the thought that went into all the names that were provided. So we are still working, that's a lot of names and a lot of good suggestions. So we are still working through that process. The park board and the advisory committee for the new county park provided some suggestions that kind of ranked some of their top choices, and now the county naming policy board is taking a look at those and trying to make a recommendation for council, and the council will pick the ultimate name. So hoping sometime this year we'll be able to announce the name. We did get a lot of votes for Jason Kelsey Park. Cannot call it that. He's still living. It's against our policy to name it after someone living. But hopefully we'll see him back on the field in some capacity with the Eagles next year. So, moving.
You have 20 minutes left, so I'll
Okay. Yep. Okay, so our open space referendum, which Councilwoman Schaefer had mentioned earlier. This is another activity that we've been working on recently with the Trust for Public Land. They are helping us put together this referendum. So what is it? It's basically asking voters if they would like to provide a steady source of income or of funding for county projects and also for the Delco Greenways grant program. And as Councilman Schaefer said, this would, if this does move forward, we're targeting the November 2024 presidential election for that question to be on the ballot again, if that is what council decides to do after this feasibility study is done. And kind of why do we need this? If you can go to the next one. So we took a look at all of the various reports that have been put together, studies, cost estimates, to try to come up with a rough number of what's the known need for funding for open space throughout the county. So these are just those rough numbers of what we know for parks, trails, and also for the Delco Greenways program as well. So this doesn't include some new things either, but this is just really no need at this time. So that's some of the information that's going into the feasibility study, and that will help them determine what moves forward, what level of funding we would be asking voters to vote on. All of those details are still being worked out. I do want to mention that the Delco Greenways grant program is very, very popular. We did just announce all the winners or the grantees for round 4 of the Delco Greenways grant program. So it was $4.9 million that was given out across the county. However, there is no current funding for round 5. The only way round 5 moves forward is if this bond referendum goes to the ballot and is successful. So just keep that in mind. I know a lot of municipalities are, count on that funding. We won't be opening up the round at our normal time this year. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're trying to figure out which projects you're moving forward and which projects might need to wait a little bit longer. So hopefully, if it is successful, and hopefully with your help and support, we can fund round 5 and future rounds too, not just round 5, but future rounds. That $25 million would assume that we would be doing a round every year at $5 million for the next 5 years, if that were to be successful.
Take a minute to explain that there's no match required and that this serves as match for 4 months.
Yes. So the comment was that the Delco Greenways grants don't have a match requirement. One of the reasons that they are very popular, and that does serve in many cases as a match for other programs like DCNR's programs or DCEDs. So that's one of the reasons why it's been very popular and also been so successful, because people are able to leverage it to get additional funding and additional leverage brought in from other granting agencies. So very good point. All right. So now we're going to move into our trail projects. I am going to hand it off to Peter Williamson. He's going to talk about the Darby Creek Trail and the Chester Creek Trail. I do want to note that the East Coast Greenway is our top priority trail, but there's an entire presentation on that coming up. So I'm not going to get into any details on that one right now. And Peter is the Assistant Director for the Planning Department.
Thank you, Gina. Hi, everybody. I know a lot of the people in the room. It's nice to see you all again. This is Delaware County's primary trail network map from its previous comprehensive plan. The image is a couple years old, but the trails are indicated in blue or orange. The blue ones are planned. The orange ones at the time were ones that were actually in place. So as you can see just from the distribution of colors, most of the system isn't quite in place. Bits of it are, but I'm going to talk to you about the two ones that the county has taken an active role in trying to implement, which are the Darby Creek and Chester Creek trails, which
You need to describe rather than point,
I need to describe rather than point.
because when we do the video online, your pointing won't show.
Okay, well, the Chester Creek Trail is in the central part of the county and leads into the city of Chester and ends at the Wawa train station. We've been working on the lower section from
I'll point for you.
from Lenai Road down into the city of Chester. I'll be talking about that later. The Darby Creek Trail is much farther to the east and goes from essentially, well, it depends on where you want to stop it, but it goes deep into Radnor and Haverford and all the way down to the city line. And I'll be talking about the lower section. Advance this slide, please. Okay, this is from an old map. This is from a 2009 study of the Darby Creek Trail, the lower section. So just as an orientation, on the far right is the Swedish Cabin, Gillespie Park in Upper Darby, and on the far right is downtown Darby. At that time, the properties in light green were owned by municipalities, and the properties in dark green were owned by the county. The county has for decades has been thinking about trying to build this trail. The most significant things to note about this map since 2009 is the big yellow polygon on the far right is the former Little Flower Manor property. It's now mostly a county park. The county bought 2/3 of it, but for the nursing home itself, and is developing it actively as a park. So you can see there's a big mass of open space down at the lower end that wasn't there when this study was done. The other thing that's significant that probably the folks from Upper Darby will talk about is a brand new bridge at Gillespie Park that crosses from the Swedish Cabin into Gillespie Park. A new bridge will be built, and that will allow it to continue northward. But I'm going to focus on the bottom end. Next slide, please. Lucky for us, the county just received a grant from the state of $227,000 toward the final design of a particularly gnarly part of this trail. On the far right is Kent Park in Upper Darby, where the existing trail ends at a wetland. So the first thing it would have to do is cross a wetland. Then it has to cross the creek. Then it has to get across a shopping center, across the creek again, before it finally gets to the Baltimore Pike intersection at Scottdale Road in Lansdowne. So the current design shows a boardwalk across the wetland, a bridge, and then an elevated trail along the bank of Darby Creek, and then another bridge at the Darby Creek Bridge, at the Baltimore Pike Bridge at Darby Creek. It's going to be very expensive. It's about the only way to make this work, but we're committed to trying to do it. So we'll be working on putting together the final design and acquiring the right-of-way this year. Next, please. Now that's going to be very, very expensive, the previous thing I showed you. But it's going to be key to make it a contiguous trail. But in the meantime, while we work on that, we've also started working on the lower end. At the bottom of the map is the SEPTA Transportation Center in downtown Darby. It's one of the most heavily used SEPTA transfer stations in the whole system. And it's going to undergo a master plan, which is going to be redesigned. But at the top end of that, where it is McDade Boulevard. So the very first thing for this trail to try to conquer is a safe crossing of McDade Boulevard. Luckily, we have a wonderful agency in DVRPC who's helping us with PennDOT on trying to figure out the best way to cross that road. A note on the colors here. The yellow lines are places where this conceptual trail line could go already. It's on public land. Nothing has to be bought. The red lines indicate places where a trail easement would need to be acquired that is not yet in place. The longest one on the east side in the middle is Mercy Fitzgerald Hospital. Okay? So logically, this trail loop, if it's ever built, could connect the SEPTA Transportation Center to Mercy Fitzgerald Hospital. That's like a classic quality of life improvement, right? It'd be a wonderful thing. Steve Beckley and I just talked to Darby Borough 2 nights ago about this idea, and they were completely on board. They loved the idea. The other one across the creek is an apartment complex. The trail would be in the floodplain. It's already built. We've been talking to both landowners. They're open so far, but we don't have any sorts of agreements of sale. At the bottom is a shopping center across McDade Boulevard from the SEPTA station. So we think that a crossing through the property would be the best way to get into Bartram Park in Darby. So that's what we're going to be talking to the shopping center owners shortly. Above Providence Road, which is in the middle there, it gets much more difficult to do. You see the county owns all the land, there's no red lines, but you can also see that each one of those circles represents a new bridge. Darby's bridge just cost $750,000. okay? So that's 4 bridges to get from Lansdowne to Providence Road. That's a lot of money. So alternatively, to get from Penn Pines Park in Upper Darby, south of Providence Road, all the way to the SEPTA station is only 2 bridges. And it's a much larger section of trail and would create a loop. So that's going to be the county's priority to try to do that first, get that done, and then we'll work on the northern section. Next slide, please. To turn to the Chester Creek Trail, the fat red line in the middle of this map represents the second phase of Chester Creek Trail. The thin red line above it is already built. Middletown will be talking about the purple and white line above. I'll be talking about the fat red line and the gold and white line below it. Chester Creek Trail Phase 2 has been under design for years and years, but it's going to go to construction either at the end of this year or next year. The construction drawings are almost done. We're going to let a contract to the Wilson Engineering to finalize the construction drawings at the next council meeting. We expect those drawings will be done this spring, and the contracts will be let by the end of the year. It's only going to cost $7.5 million. Jeepers creepers, can you believe it? Next slide, please. This is a detailed map from Wilson Engineering showing that what's going to happen. It starts at the dead end at Knowlton Road now. We're at the bottom end of the existing trail where nobody walks because it's a dead end. So it will continue across Chester Creek Road, across an old railroad trestle that's there. It's going to get improved. And then go along, hug some hills. It's really a beautiful walk. It hugs the hills in a big long curve to Dutton Mill Road. You can see some black areas along this trail where the washouts are so bad that they're going to have to rebuild some bridges and armor some the walls and so forth to make it viable. And then there's a very significant pedestrian crossing at Dutton Mill Road, which those of you that know the county know this is a very busy road, but it's going to be a pedestrian actuated signal, and it'll be very safe. And it will cross, next slide please, to a trailhead. Which is shown at the far right in an older design as an L. It's going to probably be a straight line now, but it will be about 30-car trailhead. And then the trail continues on southwards and ends just a little shy of the intersection of Bridgewater Road and, what is that, Chester Creek Road down there? I forget the name of the road. But anyway, it will end there at about an 18-car parking lot. Right now, the county is actively acquiring the rights of way to build those trailheads, and those will be acquired by mid-year. And that's really the last remaining thing to do. Next slide, please. We just got a $75,000 grant after many times of trying to build this parking lot. This is the Knowlton Road trailhead for the Chester Creek Trail, the existing trail. It's woefully undersized. It's a 10-car parking lot. It's always full. People park on the driveway, throw it all the time. This shows the maximal expansion done by our engineers a while ago. I don't think it will be this big because this shows it cutting completely the berm between the site and the next door residential house. I don't think that will happen. So I think the lot will be maybe 2/3 this size. Next slide, please. We hope to get this built this year, by the way, if we can rouse up the internal funds to do so. The last thing I'm going to talk about very briefly, I don't have much time, is phase 4 of the Chester Creek Trail, which is the gold and white trail at the bottom of the fat red line. That would take it to the city of Chester line, southwards, mostly through Chester Township, but also through Aston Township as shown. The county got a grant to do a feasibility study for this trail section, and it spent last year got this grant. It spent the past year trying to figure out what the alignment might be before we release a RFP to a consultant to help us. Next slide, please. So we've been talking to the landowners along the way, which include the county, some sewerage authorities, the Parks and Rec Department, and municipalities. And this is the concept they're working on now. Again, I can't point, that really makes me, but the curved line on the bottom, the pink curved line, follows the old SEPTA right-of-way, the same SEPTA right-of-way that's used for the rest of the trail. Now, to the point where there would need to be a bridge across Chester Creek to allow a pedestrian to walk through the neighborhood of Toby Farms to Upland Park, through Upland Park, through Upland Borough, down to the Caleb Pusey house, where the loop would be connected. You do see a spur that goes through an industrial subdivision and would end, nicely enough, at the 2SP Brewery. For those of you that might be interested. So the next step here is to expose this to Chester Township. We've been talking to them, but we haven't shown them this map. We're going to be talking to them next week. You can also see that this thing, if it were to be built, could have connections to Crozier Park in Chester, where the red trail is actively being developed. And long term, should this ever be possible, you could go underneath the railroad in 95 into Chester, where you could find a nice trailhead at a Chester Upland School District site at the bottom of that trail, right on Route 13. But that's a long-term prospect.
Right at the East Coast Greenway.
Yeah, right at the East Coast Greenway. Okay, so that's the end of my remarks. That's what we've been doing. I think I'm about on time.
Do you have more to say?
No.
We're doing questions at the end, right?
Do
Do you want it? You have a few minutes. Does anyone have any questions for them? Feel free, really. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Gina. And oh, I'm sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
30-second comment, because obviously.
Here.
Wait for the mic back.
Yes, thank you. Just a 30-second comment. 3 years ago, the September 11th National Memorial Trail became part of the National Park System. Through Delaware County, it co-locates along the entire waterfront, which is East Coast Greenway. This is bringing in attention, funding, etc. We're looking at having ambassadors all along the 1,300-mile route. So I'll be speaking a bit about that later on. But it's a big thing in getting funding for this huge project that you're proposing.
Yeah, I can just say. Yes, so the East Coast Greenway is also the same route as the 9/11 Trail, as the Washington-Rochambeau Revolutionary Route, and we did, not to steal any thunder from the East Coast Greenway presentation later, we did apply. There is some sort of money or some sort of initiative within the legislature to do some infrastructure improvements around Pennsylvania in relation to America 250. We did submit an application noting all of the history. We called it the Trail of History in Delaware County. So we are trying to leverage what may be available in association with that to help bring in some funding for that. So thank you.
Could you repeat one of the alternate names you just did, Shambo?
The Washington-Rochambeau Revolutionary Route. Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
Just go to eds.gov.
Mhm. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Gina, and thanks, Peter. Okay, up next we have from the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia and the Bike Delaware County, we have Pat Monahan and James Bergman. You guys can, which one do you get? Pat. Patrick.
Hey everybody, I'm going to give a regional update on the circuit trails. Here's the clicker. So yeah, Patrick Monahan, regional organizer with the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. Is this how it works? Okay. Yes, also with the Circuit Trails Coalition, there are a lot of organizations and agencies that come together to make this work happen. And I'll be giving a zoom out on the region, zoom in on Delaware County, go from there. It's a little delayed, I think. Maybe, yeah, I'll do that. So here's the latest view on the regional map. There's a lot of different statuses on each trail segment. There's the existing, which is in green, in progress, which means it's either being designed or under construction. Pipeline is they're doing the right-of-way acquisition, looking at the feasibility of some of the trails, and it's in motion. And then there's planned, where it's connecting the dots. It's either going through a study, moving forward at some level, but conceptual at some level too. Next slide. And then we have here the number of miles. So you have 393 miles that are existing, 78 are in in progress, 112 in pipeline, and then 254 miles in the plan. So altogether, this is over 800 miles, but we are still.
Put it closer to your mic
Oh.
and speak a little louder.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? Great. Great. So, right, and so we're reaching that 500 miles by 2025 with the 393 miles getting closer. We hope to reach 400 miles by later in this year and really push for that campaign to reach that goal there. Next slide, please. All right, and I'll dive into some trail openings that came up in 2023. Next slide. So here we have a full list of all the trail segments in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I put them in alphabetical order here, but I'll dive into the Darby Creek Trail, the East Coast Greenway, and Naylor's Run Trail. We also have trail openings on the Delaware River, on the Heritage Trail in New Jersey, and the Delaware River Trail in Pennsylvania. So altogether, 7.5 miles roughly from this year, and making great progress. So next slide. So with the Darby Creek Trail, we have the new crossing at the Swedish Cabin. We can go to the next slide. Here's a little closer view on this. Yep, thank you. Really big project, good crossing with the bridge there, really exciting progress made on that segment. We can go a little closer, the next slide. And there's a good view, aerial view of that segment. So only 0.8 miles, but a great crossing. And we'll go to the next slide. All right, next up is the East Coast Greenway. We have the segment from the PA and Delaware buffer. Yeah. Thanks, Rich. All right, and we can zoom in there. So there it is on the red, Marcus Hook, buffered bicycle lane, connecting the East Coast Greenway along there too. Oh, yeah, next slide, please. And there's a zoom in on that as well. And next slide. Okay, and then Naylor's Run, Essex Ave near Marshall Road and Long Lane. We can zoom in here. And then the red segment there is a part of it. If we zoom in a little bit further, we'll see the full green Y shape there is the next is the segment there that was recently completed. Thanks, Rich. Okay. And I just want to highlight a year momentum. This was a blog that came out on the Circuit blog. In 2023, we had $41.7 million secured for the development of the circuit. A lot of this funds were towards the Chester Creek Trail, as well as many other projects and throughout the region. Go next slide. And then the circuit trails annual report is something I'm working on currently. This highlights all of the segments I went into in more detail, as well as the trails that are in New Jersey. And it talks about all the great programming we've done on the circuit, as well as trails to come in the year ahead. Go next slide. And this is from our Explore the Circuit ride series. So this is at the Schuylkill Banks, where the new segment's coming up, Christian to Crescent, really highly anticipated segment. And we basically highlight segments that are upcoming or segments that were recently completed to highlight the importance of all the great trail development that everyone's working on. Next slide. So there's a lot of ways to be involved. You can become a circuit citizen, which is taking action alerts in your county. And you can also sign up for the newsletter. This is a great way to be plugged in for events like this, rides on the trails, and taking action to accelerate trail development in your county. Next slide. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, you can reach me at patrick@bicyclecoalition.org, and I will be happy to assist you on any of that. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick, for that really uplifting update on the circuit trails. It's 7.4 miles is amazing. I'm very, very excited about that. Thanks also to Rich, Peter, and Eileen for organizing this. As always, I'd say this is probably my favorite event to go to this in the year as well. So I wanted to give you just a quick update on some of the things that we've been working on with Bike Delaware County this year. One thing to note, next slide. Last year, Eric Hartman and I got up and we talked about the formation of a 15-person Bike Delco action team. And we put up a map here of Delaware County. And of course, one thing that really bears repeating is that Delaware County has 49 different municipalities. Is also, Gina just reminded us that the county owns none of the roads in the county, which means that in order to create bike connectivity, you need to have cooperation of a lot of different municipalities. So we had members representation from about 15 people of all these different municipalities here. Next slide, Rich. I also did say, however, we were missing some pretty key areas. We were missing like the only city in Delaware County. We were missing people from that. We were also missing people from the western reaches of Delaware County. Next slide, Rich. I'm happy to say that this year we have managed to grow our action team by about 60 people. And we've also added a lot of people. It's not just one, actually. It's a number of people from those areas, from the western area and also from Chester. So we're very, very pleased with this, especially since, we are the second densest county in Pennsylvania, meaning that we are a county that is kind of ripe for better bike connectivity and bicycling in general. We have a lot of traffic. Better to have more people, fewer cars on the road and more people biking. And of course, we'll hear from the active transportation people a little bit later as well. What I'd also say is on that action team are people who are super active on a day-to-day basis. Some people, get our updates. But that includes municipal committee members, legislative staffers, veteran advocates for better biking and trails, some of whom are actually here today. And of course, people who regularly bike in all different places in Delaware County and can share the knowledge that they have built up in terms of, where are places that you actually can bike and where are some places that might be very difficult to bike. I've gotten a number of routes from people. Lynn, who's in the audience somewhere, is extremely good at sending me some of the bike routes that she's figured out, and other people have done so too. So how have we been building our network over the past year? Next slide, Rich. So we've done a fair amount of outreach. As you can see here, this is right here. These are some pictures from the 2 bike rodeos that we hosted in conjunction with Youth Development United and the Bicycle Coalition. At these bike rodeos, the first one was on the waterfront by the East Coast Greenway, so we were able to generate interest in the East Coast Greenway, show people what the possibilities were. The second one was at Air Park, which is right by the Chester Creek Trail. Peter Williamson showed the parts of the Chester Creek Trail, the southern portion. You might have seen that there is a completed portion at Air Park in Chester, which doesn't yet connect down to the East Coast Greenway or up to the other Chester Creek Trail, but you can see that people are working on it. So you can also see that we gave away the one bike rodeo about 60 bikes. Another one, we had 90 bikes to give away. We gave them away to a lot of the kids who were at the bike rodeo and then also to other community members at other events as well. You can see on the right, that's Mike, who's helping a kid on his bike. He was the mechanic who fixed up all of the bikes that we had donated. So it was a Herculean task that he was able to do. So very important. Introduced interest in trails and also created a whole new generation of cyclists. And one thing that we're going to do this year, in addition to another bike rodeo, is follow up with a bike maintenance clinic so that the kids that got those bikes can keep riding them, keep maintaining them, and so on. And we're hoping to do that. June 1st is the tentative date for the bike rodeo. So mark your calendars for that. It'll be in the morning to keep from getting too hot. Next slide, Rich. We also tabled at a whole bunch of events. That's Patrick and me at Bike to Work Day on the left. In the middle is me at Lansdowne Community Day, talking with a member of the community. And we got a lot of people actually signing up for the action team there, and a lot of feedback on some of where it's easy to bike, where it's not easy to bike. I had someone yell at me about the new bike lanes in Lansdowne. Bob Thomas actually recently mentioned to me that if you're not getting yelled at, you're not doing your job. And I wish I could claim credit for the bike lanes, but I was getting yelled at really by proxy, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And then also, so Lansdowne Community Day, I also, we did a blog about the new bike lanes and new bike infrastructure in Lansdowne, just to get other people noticing that this resource exists and it's available and it can be done. Next slide, Rich. We also tabled at the Delco Sustainability Conference, got a lot of people interested there. And there I am tabling at the Newland Grist Mill with two assistants, two of the junior members of Bike Delaware County, also known as my kids, telling people about the circuit trails that will be running through their community, because the Octoraro Trail may run right through that Newland Grist Mill property. And then finally there were rides. Next slide, Rich. Next slide, then you're gonna have to go back because I took them out of order. We rode in Lansdowne, and then we also, rode a few other, the mainline Greenway, but then we also did an Edges of Possibility ride, and actually found a pretty nice route from the Liper Smedley Trail down to the Chester Creek Trail, which might be actually very useful for people who want to get from one park to another by bike. We also found a route from the Chester Creek Trail back to Media that was a little bit higher stress. People from that ride will definitely tell you the ride through Middletown, especially up Lenai Road, was a little bit of a challenge. But that was actually a really useful ride as well. Some people actually said, wow, I'm very surprised that it's possible to get have such a low stress ride through Delco. And so they were really kind of impressed by that, especially the first leg of the trip. So, and then next slide, Rich. Next slide after that. And then there's our advocacy efforts that we've expanded. This is us, Patrick and me, participating in a roundtable in Media with Jen O'Mara, who was the organizer on pedestrian safety on main streets. We're a bike coalition, but bicycle safety and pedestrian safety really go hand in hand, particularly when you're trying to get more people to be able to bike to a place instead of driving there. And so this was actually a really great opportunity for us to give some policy notes. Also, SEPTA was there to talk about their redesign of the trolley, and we were able to put in a plug for making sure that they included some, bicycle-friendly amenities there. Next slide. We're on the Vision Zero Task Force for Delaware County, and we've also had we took the opportunity to provide feedback from a bicyclist's perspective on the Delco Sustainability Plan. And I made sure that we sourced it out to everyone on the Bike Delco action team to make sure that their interests were represented. So that's another important thing. And then finally, we wrote a number of letters of support for some grants that Peter Williamson said actually have come through for Delaware County. I obviously don't take all the credit for that, but we were able to help in the way that we can. So what are our plans for this year? There's a couple of things that we're interested in doing. We're going to be doing a ride in Upper Darby, hopefully. Need to talk to Bill about that. We're also planning on doing some rides to showcase the Chester Pike Corridor, which is kind of a really important development project. PennDOT is resurfacing it this year, and there's a lot of really good routes down there that make it a more bikeable place than one might imagine. But also, in order to make sure that the businesses on Chester Pike are accessible, it's also something where we want to make sure that people recognize that this is a bikeable area, and we do want bike lanes on Chester Pike to be able to reach a lot of these businesses. Next slide. The other important thing is what can we do for your municipality? If you're a municipal official, or you're doing, or you're interested in improving bikeability, maybe you're applying for a grant, we can write a letter of support for that. We can publicize your initiatives through blog posts, rides, events like the ones we've been doing. We can organize bike counts and bike audits if you're interested in that, and see like who is using your cycling infrastructure. And then obviously, because we're growing our action team, and we're going to continue to, we have people in a lot of these different municipalities who can reach out to you, and you can reach out to. So with that,
Take a minute to mention you have counterpart groups in Chester, Downey.
Yes, okay, and we also do, of course, Bike Delaware County is the affiliate for the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia in Delco, but there is, of course, Bike Chesco, Bike Montco, Bike Bucks, and then things across the river in New Jersey, although I don't really know a whole lot about New Jersey. There is basically an affiliate for every single county, and
they can do these things for people as well.
yes, and they can all do these things for people as well, because we do have people in other counties around here, and I think that that's a really important thing to mention as well. So thank you very much, Rich, for that. With that, I think I might have run out of time, but we might have time for a few questions. 2 minutes, okay. Peter.
So is Chester Pike getting a bike lane?
So I think, so the question was, is Chester Pike getting a bike lane? And my understanding is that there is, we're not entirely sure yet. I think that there's a number of plans out there. Some people might be able to speak to this a little bit better. But there's definitely, there are some plans in place to maybe put bike lanes in some places along Chester Pike. But we're actually gonna, I can definitely get back to you on that, because I think there is part of the bicycle friendly resurfacing program it might include. But I see Gina Burrett coming up here to.
Yes.
Thank
you. Sorry, I shouldn't have sat so far in the back. To the question, there's a couple of different things. There is the resurfacing project, but there's also, similar to the Bicyclist Baltimore Pike, there is an effort within the Chester Pike Coalition to do a Bicyclist Chester Pike, so a lower stress route that would be parallel to Chester Pike. So but it is still kind of in the process and in the works currently, but that's kind of where it's going right now.
No, don't apologize. Thank you very much. Bob.
What's the status of the Octororo Trail between Wawa and Chatsworth?
So once again, I'm not completely sure, but I know that they're building some parts of it, or it's in the design phase at this point, but I don't have that particular piece of information fully at my fingertips right now.
I'll talk to you later.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. The question was, what's the status of the Octororo Trail between Wawa and Chatsford? Daniel.
What are some upcoming events?
Some upcoming events. Yes, thank you. So we have some upcoming. We've got the bike rodeo will be on June 1st. There's a bike ride that we're going to organize in Upper Darby. We haven't nailed down that event yet. And we're also planning a ride for Chester Pike, also date TBD. But that's another upcoming event that's happening. And also, if you would like us to organize an event, I would be very happy to be part of that. Yes.
Have you worked with any historians to help interpret the areas around the trail?
I would absolutely love to do that. Yes. Oh yes. Oh, sorry about that. The question have I worked with any historians to interpret the areas around the trails? I have not, and it's interesting because I'm actually a historian by training. But so I think that would be an absolutely fantastic possibility, especially doing a ride. Especially if we maybe do a ride of the Darby Creek Trail. There is the Swedish cabin there, but I'd be interested in a number of other things too. So I would love to talk further about that.
I'll talk to you at the end also.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. Oh, I don't think we have time.
Thanks, James and Patrick. That was great. Really exciting stuff. Okay, the next group, I'll just introduce the first person and then you can introduce the next person in your order. So it's the focus on Route 291 Road Diet Study and the East Coast Greenway. First speaker is Daniel Paschal from the East Coast Greenway Alliance. Here he comes. Hey. And then you can just go on to the next.
Okay, great. Good morning. Too much? Okay. I'm Daniel Paschal with the East Coast Greenway Alliance. I'm the Mid-Atlantic manager based in Philadelphia, but covering the East Coast Greenway in Pennsylvania, so Bucks County, as well as Philadelphia and Delaware County, as well as Delaware across the city or the state border into Maryland. So covering a big region, but I will say that this corridor is really the priority of my region for a lot of reasons, many of which have been already stated and many of which you'll see here in the coming slides. Thankfully, I have a massive team of professionals, advocates, supporters within public office, people that are seeing the glaring reasons of why we need more walkable, bikeable spaces, especially along the 291 corridor. So thank you. I know we have a lot of slides, so I'll go quick. You can see in the picture in the background, that is 291. Quick show of hands, how many people have driven on 291? So most everyone. How many people have stopped in Chester to get something to eat or hang out? A lot fewer hands, yeah. So the big theme I'm seeing here is that it's literally called industrial highway. We're trying to turn it into a gateway. And this has been in the plans for dozens of years, decades, and it's about one plan every 3 or 4 years where they say the same thing, and the city residents ask for the same thing, and people say we need to do the same thing. So the theme here is going from planning to action, and I hope people will see that that is really happening. So next slide, please. We have a number of updates. East Coast Greenway, we're just kind of playing support role. The East Coast Greenway, you'll see in some slides later, we're 3,000 miles in development, a trail from Maine to Florida, a big idea, but it's made up of local trails in local communities, local towns and cities, creating their spaces, and we are merely the quilt that stitches the patches together. So as you can see, putting the pieces together in Chester, but also in Ridley, in Township. There's a lot going on, so next slide, please. It was actually kind of fun to put this together to really show the amount of action. There's lots of studies that have come from plans and concepts, but you can see sort of along the top, the amenities that exist. There's bike lanes entering into Marcus Hook. Maybe it's not the most comfortable experience. That could be protected bike lanes in the future. That is the goal of the East Coast Greenway, to have a traffic separated route for walking and biking. But that's a lot better than what it was. It was 4 lanes, and then they did a road diet and put in a bike lane, so that's great. As you go left to right, you can see each town has sort of been isolated. They're a chain of islands, so to speak, but it's all land. Why are they islands? And it's because of the traffic. It's because it's a truck route. It's because it's gnarly, as I heard earlier. That's a good phrase to call it. And so we have lots of traffic calming projects in the works. In Chester, you have an incredible amenity of the Riverfront Trail there, right along the water. Subaru Park, of course, is there, but Berry Bridge Park is there. There's festivals, there's music, there's arts, and there's lots to even have more there. There's more potential, and it's walking distance from so many residents across 291, except people don't feel safe going across there, or they might not know what's over there. And if people do go there, they often drive, and you have to have a vehicle to get across, and that's a burden of itself. So connector streets, Highland Street and Norris Street, are Highland Ave and North Street are going to be trails going along those roadways to safely get family-friendly access to the riverfront. As the union that plays there, the soccer team at Subaru Park, they're building their own complex. There's a lot going on, but we want to make sure that there's access to and from the riverfront so that it benefits the whole city. And this is something that we've seen in the Parks Plan, the Resilience through Recreation Plan that Pennsylvania Environmental Council led. There's a lot happening in Chester that's going to basically just be fulfilled through those better connections. Chester Creek Trail, you can see in the top there too. There's a beautiful trail. This is an air park that James had mentioned where one of the bike rodeos was. All of that, the new generation of cyclists, I love that framing. When you're biking as a kid, that's usually when you ask people later in their life, oh yeah, I biked as a kid. There's a drop off at some point. And that's because when you try to go a little bit further than just a park, if you need to go, meet up with your friends, usually it's dangerous to get there. You need a car. So that's the idea. We're trying to make lifelong cyclists, not just cyclists when they're first growing up. And so these connections, if you can imagine going from Chester, on the far right of the screen, the Hines Wildlife Refuge is less than a half an hour bike ride away. Imagine biking off-road, safe from traffic, all the way to the Hines Refuge. You have this amazing wildlife refuge right over there. So that's what all these other plans are kind of working on. Even if you have more industrial land, Kimberly Clark, Boeing, there's other properties that might not be residential, but that could be part of this gateway. So there's plans that Lisa Gaffney with the City of Chester will talk about on 291 in front of the Subaru Park and in front of residences there, traffic calming. Right now, you can kind of see in the bottom photo at the screen, bottom of the screen, 5 lanes, trucks, no medians, no traffic lights for long stretches. It makes it really difficult to cross as a pedestrian. It makes it dangerous to drive, frankly. There's bus stops along the way, there's shops, there's economic potential, lots of land that could be developed into more walkable, mixed use, commerce that actually can bring, new business opportunities. There's a great taco spot in the City of Chester. So Duo Tacos, Roland Taylor, he's part of the steering committee for a lot of these plans too. So 291 going into Eddystone, there was a corridor plan that was finished that calls for the trail along there. And then Ridley, you'll hear about that. There's a drainage project that PennDOT is getting creative and building a trail. Thank you, PennDOT. And then in Tinicum, there's also a study that you'll hear more about. But these are the stepping stones, and we want it to be fulfilled as one trail. Okay, Delaware County, I believe, is next. And not sure, is it Kathy or?
Kathy Spar.
Kathy Spar. She's coming up. This is an overview of where we are on the East Coast Greenway. It's really just to give you some context that this is a major part of the whole thing.
Thank you, Daniel. So I'm Kathy Spar, and I am going to be doing this with Tara. You can move to the next slide. So we're really lucky in Delaware County that we have a county council finally who is very interested in planning and trails, and we have an amazing champion in Councilwoman Schaefer. And so she said, I want the East Coast Greenway. And the county planning department said, okay. And so we went after a TCDI grant to do a study on Route 291 and to look at how we're going to make it safer and then also get the East Coast Greenway in here along the preferred alternative in both Chester City and Ridley Township. You can go to the next slide. So the foundation of this is both safety and community engagement, because there have been studies done, but sometimes data isn't enough to move a project forward. We really needed to learn about the lived experiences of the residents in Chester so we could turn around and share those stories with PennDOT and have them understand what it's really like to live along this corridor. And as you can see, some of the stories are extremely tragic. You can move to the next slide. This house here has been driven into 3 times. The final time, the driver was going 130 miles an hour, and both the driver and the passenger died. And this is the tragedy of what we have because we widened an urban corridor from 2 lanes to 5 lanes and didn't put in any safety features. And so, you know, we've been hearing these stories, and it's really prompted us to really dig into the data and come up with proactive solutions that will make this a safer corridor, because at the end of the day, yes, we want the East Coast Greenway, but it has to be safe because nobody will use it if it's not safe. So now I'm gonna turn it over to Tara because she really dug in here. We picked Kittleson because they rose to the top of the best consultants and really took the time to understand what we were looking for.
Thank you, Kathy. Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Tara. I'm a senior planner with Kittleson and Associates, helping the county on this TCDI project. So what we found is that the data really matches those lived experiences. So this map here shows crash data from 2017 to 2021. There were 290 crashes along this segment. This is Route 291, essentially in the city of Chester, from Irving Street to Ridley Creek. And you can see there's a special, if you can go back 1 second, sorry. There's a special concentration kind of in the middle part of the corridor, which is where you have a gap in the signals, and the stars represent where the fatal crashes occurred. Okay, next slide. Okay, so these were our main objectives for kind of the study, but also for the project that comes out of the study. So first and foremost was to improve safety for all. That was the highest priority for the community. And kind of consistent with Vision Zero, we were mostly focused on reducing the serious crashes, the ones that cause fatalities and serious injuries. Create connections for walking and biking. So again, this is part of the East Coast Greenway, but there is no safe place to bike currently. And there's no marked controlled crossings of the corridor currently. And people regularly drive, you know, it's a 35 mile per hour speed limit, but people are regularly going 45 or 50 miles per hour here. Another objective was to optimize roadway operations. So trying not to increase too much congestion or queuing. This is a detour route for the interstate as well, so that was something to consider. Balance the residential and industrial needs. So as mentioned, this is nicknamed the Industrial Highway, but people here call it 2nd Street. So it's kind of balancing the truck traffic and the needs of the industrial corridor with the people who live here and have lived here for generations. And lastly, planning for implementation. There's been a number of studies here, so the goal was to push this forward into preliminary engineering and design. Okay, next slide. So the first thing we did was develop a toolkit of different things we could do to improve multimodal safety. We actually brought this to the Riverfront Festival and asked, you know, explain some of the tools to people and asked them to react to them. Next slide. So this is what the existing typical section looks like. You have 5 lanes, 2 headed up towards Philadelphia, 2 headed down towards Wilmington. So if you can click. Click. And click again. There's a parking lane here, which is important to the community, especially for people who live right on the corridor, but it is unsafe to get into your parked car here, because again, you have cars and trucks going very fast. And then click. There's a drainage shoulder, and click again. And then we have sidewalks on both sides. Particularly on the river side, those sidewalks get very narrow where there are the tree grades. Okay, click. All right, so here are some of the alternatives we looked into. We looked into an alternative where we keep the 5 lanes. In this case, we actually looked into moving the curb in and eliminating the parking lane. The purpose of this was to try and stay within existing right-of-way. So property was taken originally from these community members to widen the roadway, so we thought about opportunities to not take further property. And this would allow us to put in a shared use path for the East Coast Greenway. And we could implement other safety improvements as well, like medians, marked crosswalks, signalization, things like that. Okay. This is, actually, if you can click again, I feel like they're slightly out of order. Perfect. We did look at an option where we kind of keep the curb to curb and do take additional property, but again, that was kind of something that we saw as a fatal flaw. Okay, click. Then we looked at a road diet possibility, so reducing from 5 lanes down to 3 lanes. In this case, we would maintain the parking lane. We'd add a little buffer to use so that it's a little bit easier to get in and out of your car. And because we're moving in the curb then, you have a lot of space to the side to implement a East Coast Greenway facility. In this case, we're showing even a separated bicycle and pedestrian facility. And then we could implement safety improvements with this as well, like medians, curb extensions, marked crosswalks. Okay. We also thought about a hybrid solution. So if you can click again, I think it's gonna be talked more about, but there is already a project, part of the corridor that is adding the East Coast Greenway. And so we could, that one doesn't contemplate a road diet, so we could move forward with that project in that part of the corridor. And then click. We could implement a 3-lane road diet in kind of the fastest, deadliest part of the corridor. So that's where we can really focus shortening the pedestrian crossings and slowing traffic speeds. And then click, we could implement still a road diet, but something that has 2 westbound lanes in the further part of the corridor where queuing and congestion during the peak hour, it could be more of a concern. So that's an option. You can click again. So just the last 2 slides here. We did safety analysis to understand how these improvements might reduce crashes over time. So you can kind of see here the difference between the 5 lanes, really these 2 alternatives here, alternative A and alternative B, the 5 lanes with safety improvements versus the 3 lanes with safety improvements. And again, focusing on kind of the severe crashes that lead to fatalities. So going, if you can click again, I think, yeah, so reducing by 40% with the 5-lane alternative and by 63% with the 3-lane alternative. And one more click. One thing we thought about, often when we do traffic analysis, we project out a number of years. We did that with our crashes as well and just thought, okay, by 2050, how many fewer fatalities and serious injuries is that over time? So that kind of helped us think through that as well. So we are wrapping up this study. We'll have our final report in the next month or so, and then the project should be moving into preliminary engineering and going from there. Anything else you want to add? No. All right, I think that was it.
So our next group of speakers are Lisa Gaffney with, Mayor Roots. Mayor Stefan Roots is going to be speaking, and Lisa Gaffney from Chester Economic Development Authority and the Riverfront Alliance are going to be speaking.
Good morning. I didn't prepare any slides, so you guys have to look at me for about 4 minutes. How's that? My name's Stefan Roots, the new mayor of Chester, Pennsylvania. I didn't build in an applause line there. But listen, my remarks are prepared strictly on what I've seen and heard today. The one thing that I see is about 100 people who've been in and out of this room, which is amazing to me that you guys are that into trails and bikes and nature. I don't think we could have got 100 people out in the city of Chester residents. But when they do come out, it was a lot to do with that last presentation, Route 291. That number I was expecting a gasp from you guys, because I certainly had one. 290 accidents on less than a mile strip of road over the last 5 or 6 years. Give me a show of hands of anywhere else in the county that has occurred. And if it did occur, you would be the guys ranting and raving and making sure that's not happening in your community. Our community, as Daniel said, has been out complaining about this for a long time. And it's really great to see something start to happen to calm the traffic down there. It's my job as mayor to be in rooms like this. In the last couple months, I've been attending meetings from DC to Harrisburg and all around here. And the first question I ask when I'm in these meetings is this the first time you've seen someone from Chester in this room? And every time the answer is yes. Those days are over. We need to collaborate with you guys, with the state, and with other people around the country, because that's the only way Chester's the #1 city, the first city of Pennsylvania. It's the hub. All roads lead to Chester. All the trails are coming through Chester, whether it's Gateway, whether it's east of the, name them please.
East Coast Greenway.
East Coast Greenway, come on.
Chester Creek Trail.
Chester Creek Trail, come on, give me the other one.
That's it.
Washington round Schaumburg.
Yes.
All of them are coming through Chester. I've got to give you a reason to come through Chester if the trails are coming. That's my job. We're going to do a lot of development. We're going to clean up 291. We've got the World Cup coming in a couple years. That's all the reason in the world that I've got to clean up this city. When I first got on board as an elected official 2 years ago, it was right after that lady, that's Council Lady Schaefer, was responsible for $500,000 coming into the city of Chester for East Coast Greenway? Which one was it?
For the Chester Creek Trail.
Something. All I know is $500,000 was coming into the city for trails. And I was just thinking to myself, that's nice, but $500,000 could be spent in a lot of different places in the city of Chester. It was that lady right there, Miss Lisa Gaffney, who says, you're gonna begin to appreciate trails, and you're gonna appreciate them pretty fast. And she wasn't lying. I do appreciate trails. The people in our city appreciate trails. The trails that have been built right now, the ones on the riverfront, the ones in Air Park, they're used frequently. It's sadly one of the few places people can walk a quarter mile and half mile and a mile, depending on how many times they go back and forth or around, where there's not a broken sidewalk, where they don't have to step in the street and face traffic. Trails are really important in our city. I would like to see trails in other places, particularly around where our seniors are living, that they can come outside and enjoy the outdoors. We've got parks, we've got open spaces, right there. That's stuff that we can do within our city using this as a model, and those type of things are going to happen. I want to let you know that you're going to see my face quite a bit, whether it's in county council meetings, whether it's in meetings like this. I'm glad you had the meeting here, because I've never been here. And coming off of Route 3 and making that left turn, I went to Villanova. That used to be my way to get there before the Blue Route was built. But I never made that first left into here, and to come back here, and to see what's built here. I would love to have this, or some sample of this, in my city. So would my city. Look at this building. They're over there playing basketball. They're walking around the track. I look outdoors. There's, the outdoor activity. There's trails. We've got 250 acres of parkland in the city of Chester that's totally underutilized. I'm here begging for your help. Contact me even outside of this realm if you think you can help, would like to help. Chester is not going to be that insular place that it's been for so long. We're reaching out because I think you guys want what I want, for Chester to be built up again. It is the county's riverfront community. We want you to come and enjoy it. We have done a bad job on our part, making it accessible, enjoyable, and functional for the rest of you. But for those of you who are trying to help us, I just come this morning to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and let's keep it up. I want to introduce somebody who is just keeping the flame alive in the city of Chester when it comes to parks, recreation, grants, trails, trees, and everything else that's good. Miss Lisa Gaffney, she did prepare slides, so let me get out the way and let her do her thing.
Thank you very much, Mayor Roots, and I'm going to say it's a new day in Chester, and we're very excited about the collaboration of having a mayor that really likes trails and trees. I'm going to say it, you're committed now, and also working with the county. And what I would say is if we can do it in Chester, and we've done it through partnerships. We have PEC here, we've got Michael Baker, we have the county, we have DVRPC. We're a distressed city financially, but all these folks have come in to work with us. And so I thank each and every one of them, because we wouldn't be where we are today without that. So just quickly, I'm gonna highlight some of the projects that we're working on. So it's a big piece. So we're basically dividing it up into small segments. So we've got Highland Avenue and Norris Street. So we've got the River Walk, which you've seen along the river that connects basically the stadium with the wharf office building. And then we're looking at the connector street. So next slide, please. So this is a picture of it. You'll see on the left, you're gonna see Highland Avenue, and then on the right, far right, you're gonna see, I think North Street is on there, I hope it is, yes, North Street connector. So both of those projects are under design right now. We have a combination of funding from DCNR and Coastal Zone Management, which has allowed us to work with Peck and Michael Baker on the design of those two projects. And we have a TASA grant, a transportation alternative set aside, allocated to Highland Avenue in the amount of $1.13 million. And we were just fortunately awarded another TASA grant for North Street for $1.3 million. As an old industrial site, our biggest issue are the railroads and how do we cross over those. You think it's gonna be easy to put some, asphalt pavement down, detectable warning surfaces, all the things Chris can tell you about, but it's a very long project to do that. But we are making progress with both the PUC as well as Conrail. And then we're also looking at then connecting the pieces, while not officially the East Coast Greenway, we're looking at connecting both Highland and Norris with a off-road trail along 291, which will complement all the safety improvements that Tara and Kathy spoke about, as well as we have funding to put a traffic light in at off the Commodore Barry Bridge, off the ramps at Jeffrey Street, which will be a major safety improvement, which is about to be under design. And so those are the pieces of that section, and if you could just go to the next slide, please. And then just to show, as Mayor Root said, all the routes connect to Chester. Well, we also have a piece of the Chester Creek Trail. We built out the piece in Air Park. We're designing with the help of the county, with funding from the county, the piece in Crozier Park, which will then be connected through a piece of Parker Manor, which we also have some funding for, and funding from DCNR. But then we were just awarded a grant from DVRPC as well as Coastal Zone Management to do a study to really look at how do we connect both the East Coast Greenway and the Chester Creek Trail in Chester and look at some coastal resiliency issues and really kind of highlight our downtown and some of our historic sites like William Penn Park and Ethel Waters Park, et cetera. So that's where we are, the city of Chester. That's it, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
We're running late. So
Oh, you're running late?
Very quick.
What are the prospects for the 291 project as a whole, getting Boeing, Tara, Monroe as positioned as supporters rather than as opponents?
So we have been working with them. I work with the Riverfront Alliance of Delaware County, and a few of those groups that you talked about are part of that entity, so they are being supportive. I do think some of them have questions about traffic capacity, but I think through the study Kittleson is doing, I think there's some real compelling evidence that you can still continue to have effective traffic, but also have safety and allow those roads to be used and not be an impediment and actually connect residents down to the waterfront.
Okay, can you introduce Wesley?
Yes, sorry. Thank you. And our next speaker is Wesley Owens, is it? Owens, okay, Owens from PennDOT, thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Wesley Owens. I'm here from PennDOT District 6, presenting the incorporation of a shared use path. We're incorporating a shared use path into PennDOT's drainage improvement project on SR 291 Industrial Highway in Ridley Township. Next slide, please. The project is located with the blue line on the map. The section of Industrial Highway is about half a mile south of Exit 8 on I-95. And most of it borders Boeing's campus here. This section of the road is prone to flooding and is frequently shut down for safety reasons, thus the drainage improvement project. Next slide, please. A shared use path is being integrated into the project between Crum Creek and Stewart Avenue. On slide is a typical section between Sinai Avenue and Stewart Avenue, or Sinai Street and Stewart Avenue. This project aims to improve drainage conditions by both elevating the profile of the road and increasing drainage capacity into Darby and Crum Creeks by installing swales and upgrading stone pipes. Actually, can you go back one? So highlighted as well as with the green line on the slide is where the multi-use path will be in this section. For the length of the project, the shared use path will run on the northbound side of Industrial Highway and will likely be a fully paved 10-foot wide path with 2-foot minimum grass shoulders. Next slide. So starting at the existing walkway across Crum Creek Bridge, there would be a 5-foot grass buffer between the curb of Industrial Highway and the edge of the trail until just after C9 Street. A new crosswalk will be added across C9 Street for the trail. After C9 Street, the trail will shift to make room for a new swell. And then next slide again. And then close to Stewart Avenue, the trail will shift back with the 5-foot buffer again from the curb. The shared use path for this project will end at the Stewart Avenue. We'll be adding crosswalks across as well as extending a sidewalk from Sellers Avenue to this intersection. Currently, the project is still in the preliminary design phase and is anticipated to be bid in the fall of 2025. It is estimated that construction will take 2 years and finish in 2027. During construction, the road will be reduced to a single lane in each direction, and existing sidewalks will remain open to pedestrians during construction. Thank you. I think up next is Louis Hoffnagel.
We're running late, Luke.
Thanks, Wesley. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm here to talk about the final section in Delaware County of the East Coast Greenway in Tinicum Township. So Tinicum Township applied for a grant through Delaware County and were awarded, I work for Delaware County Planning Department. I've been in the planning department for about 3 or 4 weeks now. Previously to that, I worked at Traffic Planning Design, and this was one of the projects I worked on, so that's why I'm presenting here today. So right now, there's a side path that currently, I'll be quick because I know we're falling behind schedule. There's a side path that currently ends at the intersection of 420 and 291. The goal of this project is to connect that side path with the Heinz Refuge. It's an incredibly complicated section because it's only about 2,000 feet in a straight line to get into the refuge. However, you have I-95, you have a cloverleaf interchange for I-95, you have Pico power lines overhead, you have a lot of environmental sensitivity everywhere, and there's wetlands everywhere. So it's incredibly complicated, and there's not very many options to get into the refuge. So I'll just skip right to the alternatives. If you want to go, we'll skip these. And let's just go to alternative A. Here we go. So this is the first alternative. As you can see on the bottom left here, this will just cross over the intersection of 291 and 420, go through Manor Park, a brief little stretch through the park, and this is a ped bridge over I-95. So that's alternative A. Next, yes. Now alternative B follows the same path across the intersection through Manor Park and runs along the sound walls for I-95 extending towards the east. And this goes all the, now this will have to cross over a northbound off-ramp of I-95 and a lot of wetlands and other sensitive areas, but this utilizes an existing underpass on the right. You can see the picture in the top right of the existing I-95 underpass. So that's one other option. Next. Alternative C is similar. It follows the same path as B. However, it comes across, I believe it's Scott Avenue, and it goes across along 291 into the water there. It might be a boardwalk section of some sort, and it also utilizes that underpass. Now D is a different alternative, and it kind of strays away from the directness goal of connecting with the refuge. So this goes in the southern part, goes along Fort Mifflin Road and all the way around Island Ave and comes back from the east. So it's a bit circuitous, but it's another option. And alternative E is also similar. One of this, however, okay. Yeah, if you want to go a little more to the east, the airport is working on a project to relocate a roadway, and they're building a side path there. So this is trying to use part of the airport. So the airport has a plan, and they're doing some improvements there, including some trail work. So it's trying to incorporate the airport trail. So right now, we've had our first public meeting, and we'd like to encourage everyone, if you'd like to take the survey and use that QR code and get your feedback on what your potential thoughts are on these alternatives. There's been an initial scoring, and right now the TPD team is evaluating all the alternatives, and they're trying to come up with a matrix to see which one is the preferred alternative to advance into engineering. So that's pretty much all I have. If anybody has any questions, I can answer them for you.
No, we'll skip the questions at this point.
Okay. We can skip questions and come find me anytime, and be happy to talk about it.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We're running a little late, so 5 minutes, and we'll start again with Lower Merion. Chris Leswick. Okay, everyone, please take a seat. We're about ready to start. Our next speaker will be Chris Leswick from Lower Merion. He's the Director of Building and Planning in Lower Merion Township. So as everyone takes their seat, Chris is right here. Hi, Chris.
Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here. Before I get started, I really want to thank Peter and Rich for doing this. As we know, there aren't many of these things that happen. This is the only one of these. And it's really a labor of love from these guys. And just give them a big round of applause for these guys, because this is so cool. Look forward to it. I hope next year we can make it twice as long and get some networking involved, because this is such a great time. The breaks are never long enough for us who've all come together. But anyway, I just wanted to go over and give an update of where we are. I think I was at the first Haverford Trail Summit, and I've been to most of these. A couple years I haven't been able to make it because I've been in Mardi Gras. But if I can make it, I have been here. And just kind of talk about the Kenwood Trail. I'm not in Delaware County, but I'm Delaware County adjacent. I'm in your sphere of influence. And I'm approaching this as a municipal planning director. I'm not the director of Parks and Recreation. Most people think I am because I'm associated with trails. I'm actually in charge of all land development in the township. And Lower Merion Township's big. It's one of the 3rd largest suburban communities in the region. You have Cherry Hill, you have Upper Darby, and you have Lower Merion. We've got 65,000 people. We've got a lot of development happening. And what we've tried to do with our trails is integrate the trail network into our future land use plan. Right? This isn't coming from the recreation department. This is coming from the planning department. So over the years, we've approached this a little bit differently. Rich, can you get me in my next slide? So we started in 2011 with the Kenwood Heritage Trail, a 2-mile-long trail that ran on an old septic line that they didn't need anymore, and it was out of action. It ran between a couple large cemeteries and a lot of single-family homes, and it was a hit. We were able to get out. We got a lot of the community involved in it, and everybody thought, well, that's our little trail. Well, there was actually a much bigger plan. And what I'm able to do today is kind of update you on those ideas that we had for that. So the original trail went 2 miles, and we connected a lot of different properties with it. It was linking playgrounds, it was linking train stations, it was linking big open spaces, and now those cemeteries are open. So we've been able to expand it. We've used this as a way to link private development with public development and institutional development. And then we were able to extend it over the Schuylkill River on the Merion Bridge into Merion. So we're connecting to the regional trail network. That was one of our goals, and that opened up in 2015. And everybody said, okay, great, you're done. No, that was just the start. Rich? So in this, we were able to, and this is something I'm incredibly proud about, we all talk about funding. When we've been doing this with the Kenwood Trail, it's a trail to many different people. It's a historical trail. It's the Kenwood Heritage Trail, so we were able to get historical money. It's a stormwater system, because all the stormwater for Ballard Kenwood flows through here. It connects to SEPTA. It's a last mile transit connection because of the train stations. It links economic development. So we were able to do this, and currently we're at like 8% local money. Everything else is we've been able to leverage all these other funds along the way. Next. So we had our trail, and then we've been expanding it slowly over time. So at Kinwood Station, next to Kinwood Station where the train station is, there's Montgomery Avenue, big barrier. You don't want to go up on Montgomery Avenue. Well, the tunnel that goes under there went through a BMW dealership. We redeveloped that, worked with that property owner to redevelop their dealership. And in that, we were able to get the trail through their parking lot to connect to a low stress network, which opens it up to the entire rest of the community. West Laurel Hill Cemetery, they're great partners. They were more than willing to open up their gates, but a couple years ago, they came in and they wanted to start to monetize their land, and they were putting in a new dedicated Jewish section. Well, that triggered land development. Land development triggered a sidewalk connection along Belmont Avenue, incredibly expensive. In lieu of that, dawn to dusk, there was a permanent easement through West Laurel Hill Cemetery connecting the Kinwood Heritage Trail over to Writers Ferry, which takes us down to the river, right? Great work there. And then we had new apartment buildings on our river. We had former Pencoid Ironworks, and it was Connolly Container. It was a complete mess. And when those apartments went up, in order to build that, we required them to put a trail in to lower their parking requirement and to get the density they wanted, and to connect a private bridge over to Manioc, the Pencoid Bridge. And that opened up all that. Once again, expanding our trail network without using public dollars in this. And each of these people that invested in this feels really invested in it. So that's opened up new hotel work, and if anybody's been to the Pencoid Landing, it's absolutely beautiful. And they're starting to invest more, and they're investing in the history of it, because the history of this is the brand of it. That's what makes it so cool. And so we've been working on these connections, and Rich, you got another one? Another slide, please.
As fast as I can.
Yep. And then we have all these purple lines here with City Avenue. If anybody's driven through City Avenue, it's one of the first office parks in the region, right? It was right where the Schuylkill Expressway started. Well, it's aging, you have office parks, but you still have a lot of high-end businesses in there. Well, as each of these parking lots fills in, every time they do that, there's a multi-use trail connection that's all around it. Now, these things have been coming in. The orange ones are the ones that have been built. So it's a disconnected network. But as each of these come in, you're starting to see the network come together. And those businesses are saying, how can we then spend more money to connect those? So there's three big gaps that I wanted to kind of share, and some really great news. And as anybody who does trails here, you're bashing your head against the wall. You have to have a lot of patience. I don't know how Bob Thomas has done it over the years. Like, you just have to have this amazing amount of patience to be able to do this. The first is the Norfolk Southern Tunnel. Norfolk, there's a train line that runs along a river, and Norfolk Southern has that, and there's a tunnel it's a bridge, a tunnel that was built in 1917 that they have 500 linear feet of that stops our trails from connecting. They never had any operation on it, on the ground underneath it. They inherited it when it was the old industrial area. Well, for years we've been trying to work with Norfolk Southern. I mean, years and years. And finally, just a month ago, they came forward and said, why don't you enter into a construction agreement with us? And then 2 days later said, why have you not signed a construction agreement with us? Fortunately, we had some money that came forward. An elected official was able to help us out with that. We had COVID money, and we have $1 million to devote to that project. So it's moving forward. It's actually out to bid. That's the one that's at the top. That will allow the red line, which is the Kinwood Heritage Trail, to go through some land that's undeveloped. We need to build some trails in there. Down to the waterfront trail, which is the Pencoid Trail, that runs along the river. Really great thing that will connect. It provides all sorts of connections internally, but then also in the regional trail network. Two is there's an extension from Kinwood Station, where the trail ends now, to Ballast Station and City Avenue, which is the end of Lower Merion. That is out to bid as well, right? So both of those could be done by the end of the year, early next year, right? We've been trying forever to get those going. They happen just at the same time. And then three, we're working on Writers Ferry Road. There's so much of this new development. Because of these trails have been so popular, the township is also looking at other biking and other pedestrian investments. Our local commissioners have put aside $8 million over the next 6 years to do sidewalk retrofits. Some of those come in here to do those key gaps in all of these areas. Now, they're in design. I don't know if we can build them right yet because we have so many other projects in the pipeline, right? There's only so much we can do, but they're there, and they'll come in as we move forward. And this is just a key piece of that Norfolk Southern parcel to show the Pencoy Trail, which ends. There's some apartments down towards me. The other side is Merion. There's the Merion brew pub, and there's this cool little bridge that goes in between them. That bridge connected the end of the Merion towpath and canal on the other side over to Lower Merion. That train trestle doesn't run anymore, and we're working with Norfolk Southern, and we're working with the 9/11 Trail, because this is dedicated as the 9/11 Trail, and all of their resources to make that connection. So our parcel just above that, which is where we're going to get this tunnel, is that gateway. Because first we get that land, then we can get that bridge, and that just opens up and transforms our experience. It's a wonderful, intimate experience, and it's hard to see on these kind of graphics. And Rich, next one. And this is just to show that there's 500 feet, very, very difficult piece to get. It goes under the expressway, it goes under 95, it's along the river, and we've been working with Norfolk Southern, banging our head against the wall. But when you have friends with the East Coast Greenway and the 9/11 Trail, slowly but surely we're getting there. And that's, once again, that Bob Thomas strategy. You just keep narrowing the gaps, narrowing the gaps. It's not much to look at. But Norfolk Southern is having us to redo this, right? We're actually redoing it, so the trains on the top, that's their main stem, will be able to do this. And this is from 1917. But this is what we kind of hope it looks like, right? It's gonna look a lot better, look a lot nicer, and be a really great trail connection through there and open up waterfront. Lower Merion is 7 miles of waterfront, and you wouldn't know it. The Schuylkill Expressway really does separate it, and this will be a wonderful experience for residents. And then this is that bridge, and if anybody's been over that bridge, I highly recommend it. You can still walk on, it's not open, it's pretty cool. And that's the one we really get. I mean, we've got 2 other great bridges. This is the coolest of the bridges. And then we would do a little trail connection through there. It's a 100-foot grade change from the river up to the Kinwood Trail, so we're gonna need to do some neat things. Where this line going through that area doubles back, we're gonna need another bridge. And because this was a Pencoy Ironworks at the bottom, Pencoy made bridges, and there are bridges in Pennsylvania that are for sale that people don't use. We'll find one of those old bridges and put them in this area to help us do that. And then my favorite part of this in the last year has been how people use it, right? We're talking about making these spaces. Well, who's using it? These are giant group rides that people are taking. This is one we did for Halloween. We had 200 people in costume come out. And more people, the coolest people, like the neatest people you want to meet of the experience are doing this. And that's why I'm hoarse tonight. I've gotten to know some of these people. We did a Lunar New Year ride last night. I got home at 2:30, right? Bartram's Gardens, 15 miles, started at the art museum, and it's just fun. The experience of this and why we do this is so important. It means so much to people. And Rich, can you hit on that link? Hopefully this video works. I've been working with our Township Engineer's Office to help us visualize this. And we've had some really cool drone video. And I hope the link works.
Chris just mentioned your Kinwood Trail is linking right with Merion.
It does, and that's where the really cool thing of this, I mean, if I had a half hour, I could go into that, but the Kinwood Trail is that link between Fairmount Park, the Wissahickon, and the Schuylkill River Trail. It ties all of that, and then that connection here from Kinwood to Bala, we end at the end of Lower Merion, will extend just another mile to the Mann Music Center. And that opens up all of West Philadelphia to Montgomery County. And talk about equity and opening up the region is such an important thing. Well, I don't think our video is gonna work, which is unfortunate, but we'll post it on the website, and I'll make sure on the website it does work. It's showing somewhere. But if anybody wants to ask, well, Rich is trying to see if we can get that. Patrick?
Since Bob was making the Kinwood connection, what I think is also so cool, you kind of just like to say out loud, is the Pencoy Bridge and the connection back to Merion solves the gap in the Schuylkill River Trail. And finally, the Main Street problem on the Schuylkill River Trail is finished. It's over.
Correct.
So we have this option, which the city is working on across
And those connections are, I'm trying to work with some people in Philadelphia to do a similar sort of summit, because we have all of those connections there to talk about all of those interrelationships.
It's such a critical regional trail, and it's just had this gap for years.
And it's all about those partnerships, right? We're doing partnerships, working with people in the city, and then hopefully next year we can start to focus on connecting into Delaware County. We have some of that stuff.
15 minutes behind schedule.
Okay, so they're giving me the hook. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you next year.
Great, thanks, Chris. That was great. Okay, up next is Delaware County Active Transportation Plan. I have Sarah Littlefield and May Hanzik. Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah, okay.
All right. Thank you so much for having us speak today. We're really excited to talk about the Active Transportation Plan. It's been a joy to work with Delaware County Planning Department, not just on this plan, but some of the work we've been doing with Vision Zero, as well as a micromobility plan. Go ahead and go. Next slide. All right. So to give you a little background, Walk Roll Delco is an update to an active transportation action plan in Delaware County. And the reasoning behind this is Delaware County has been planning active transportation facilities for a long time. I don't think I need to tell anyone in this room that this has been an ongoing effort to make biking and walking safer in the county. But this is an opportunity to recommend improvements for sidewalks, for bike lanes and trails, all in one place, to take a look at some of the existing plans and then make updates and generate new ideas for the county.
Sarah, you can speak into this mic too.
Oh,
For the video.
gotcha.
Next slide.
Yep. All right, and so we've been kicking this off in the fall. You know, we've been doing work in existing conditions, thinking about you know, what are the opportunities of prior plans. And then in the winter here, we've been really working on what we're calling the missing link network development. And that's really the heart of this active transportation plan. Those are the lines on the map of, you know, where are people gonna walk and bike? And that's what we're here to talk to you about today. So the draft network has a few different facility types that we're recommending. We're keeping things fairly broad at this level of this planning, high level approach. You know, we're thinking about on-road connections like bikeways, as well as bicycle boulevards. We're also thinking about those off-road connections like side paths and greenways, as well as some things like a reimagined arterial. Those are those kind of complete street style improvements for thinking about visionary ways to reimagine the, you know, really kind of monstrous arterials that are present in parts of Delaware County. We also have sidewalk improvements, as well as these kind of spot improvements, which are mostly crossings, or, you know, maybe there's a special bike treatment that might be warranted at some locations. And the network goals involve creating a safe and comfortable and connected, accessible, and equitable network for everyone in Delco. All right, and our process was to take a look at a lot of, you know, work that's already been done planning these trails and bikeways in Delco, and think about it to how we can connect, you know, all this existing work into the larger region. How can we get to Philadelphia and some of these surrounding counties? We're also thinking about how, oh, you can go back. We're gonna connect our neighborhoods in Delco, you know, not just within the neighborhoods, but how are we gonna get from, you know, point A to point B in these places in the county? We're also thinking about transit. You know, there's limited connections to transit, especially sidewalks, you know, people walking on foot, you know, who might be relying on a safe and comfortable connection to get them to a bus or a train, as well as these kind of important everyday destinations, you know, your schools, your parks, your grocery stores, you know, how can we connect those through, you know, active transportation facilities? All right, and we also really want to think about how all of those factors kind of overlay with what we're calling our equity emphasis areas. Those are the places that have been identified by DVRPC, by federal measures of places that have been either overburdened by, you know, transportation infrastructure, those road widenings, those arterials, those highways, or haven't had enough attention in active transportation planning in the past, you know? So we took a look at those, you know, to really make sure that those areas had connections within them, but also connections to the larger county and surrounding region. And then where we are right now is we've put all these ideas on paper. You know, we've have a draft network, and we're here to really engage with the community and hear from you. You know, we are not finished with the network. We're just taking a pause to collect community feedback, to hear what we got right, hear what we missed. And that's kind of the spirit of, you know, talking to you all today. I think some of you have already kind of interacted with us in the hallway, you know, marked up our maps, and we want to just continue that process.
Awesome. So I hope this graphic looks somewhat familiar because Gina had a very similar one in her presentation earlier. Did you guys hear that? This graphic should look pretty familiar because it was in Gina's presentation earlier with the Vision Zero plan. And we point that out to say that our community conversations, our public engagement is happening now. So we really, really, really want you all to take some time. We've got a QR code out there. We've got this great interactive public input map, and take some time to tell us this sidewalk could use a little bit of love, or this intersection is really dangerous and I don't feel safe walking there with my kids. Please, please take that time and do it before April. Because now is when we want to be making improvements to the network that Sarah was mentioning earlier. And if you go to the next slide, we hopefully have a video.
Did you know? There were 54 traffic deaths last year in Delaware County. 54 people, loved ones, neighbors, friends. That's 54 too many. We know we can do better here in Delco. Over the next several months, Delaware County will be developing a Vision Zero action plan and active transportation plan. The Vision Zero action plan will identify strategies to improve Delco's streets so we can all drive safe, roll safe, and walk safe. The active transportation plan will focus specifically on walking and rolling and where we can make improvements to sidewalks, bike lanes, and trails. But we can't do it alone. You are the one who travels in Delco. You are the one who knows which roads don't feel safe to bike on with your kids, or which intersections you avoid in your car, or where a sidewalk is desperately needed. That's why we need to hear from you. So, tell us. Take the survey at delcopa.gov/Vision Zero Delco and sign up to get notified on the latest project-related news. Thank you for being a part of making Delco streets safer for all.
Well, your big takeaway from that should be to go to delcopa.gov/Vision Zero Delco and provide us with some feedback. We'll also be having this video, lovely video, especially with audio, up on the website, and you can be sharing it on your socials, and so you can hopefully be encouraging other people to participate in this process. So come find us in the hallway. We'd love to hear from you. Oh, and I don't think we're going to have enough time for this, so come talk to us in the hallway.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks so much. Okay. Up next, we have from Upper Darby. That's what we're up to. Upper Darby Trails. We have Bill Kaplan. Bill, come on up. There you go. And we also have Steve.
And Patrick.
And Patrick.
And Patrick.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? 2 minutes each. We will be very quick.
I'm not saying it.
Let me stand here.
And then I'll introduce you, Steve.
Good.
So we will try to be brief. I could stand up here all day and talk about Upper Darby. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And if there's anything that you take away, I really want to emphasize that under the last administration, Mayor Schaefer, and under the new administration, Mayor Brown, and our new CAO, we are back in the game, or we are in the game. We are a missing piece that I know many people have been wanting Upper Darby to be part of everything that's happening here. So what I really want to emphasize here is not only are we excited about trail development, but we do it through a cultural lens, a cultural and racial lens. And there's been a lot of talk here about equity. In Upper Darby, as many of you know, we're about a third foreign born. We've got multiple languages. We've got a senior population. So I just really want to highlight what the mayor of Chester was talking about. We view trails and walking and biking maybe a little differently than most people do here. From the people that live in Upper Darby, how they walk, how they bike is actually not necessarily for entertainment or health. It is a necessity. The ownership of cars, the use of public transportation. So I just really wanted to emphasize as we go through the update with Upper Darby Trails, we're here excited about trails, but we're excited about connecting our neighborhoods that have historically not been, for whatever reasons, connected to the rest of Delaware County. And we are excited, and I'm learning how to use trails to connect these neighborhoods. So we'll talk about the updates as we go along. And I wanted to introduce Steve, who's really been the community voice of all of Upper Darby Trails. Next slide.
I'm from Upper Darby Trails, friends of Upper Darby Trails. Next slide, please. This is a general view of many of the waterways in our area, starting with Delaware River on the right, and then Schuylkill River, Cobbs Creek, and then there's another area where there's the Nailers Run Trail, and finally the western edge of Upper Darby, which is the Darby Creek Trail. Next slide, please. In the top right quadrant, you can see the Forge to Refuge Trail enter, and as it proceeds south, it's named the Cobbs Creek Trail locally. In the top center, the aptly named Pensy Trail for the Pennsylvania Railroad becomes the Nailers Run Trail going into Upper Darby. And at the top left, you can see the Darby Creek's headwaters. Moving south, you see the outline of that trail next to the creek, all the way down through Clifton Heights Borough at the bottom center. All of these converge near Hines Refuge and East Coast Greenway at the airport. Next slide. Oh, that's the one. On the left is the 150-foot bridge on the Darby Creek Trail at Gillespie Park. In the center is the Nailers Run Trail at Long Lane. And on the right, the Darby Creek Trail once again at the Drexeline Shopping Center. Next slide.
Just want to say one word? Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say a word of thanks and appreciation to Delaware County Council for these bridges and all these opportunities. So I just really wanted to emphasize that we cannot do any of this work without the funds and without the partnership of Delaware County Council. So we appreciate that. We've also been awarded a round 4 for a second bridge, and we can share with you how all of that connects. But these bridges and these partnerships and the support from the council is what makes all of this possible. So,
thanks. Next slide, please.
Mention that the line is developer funded.
Okay, when we get there. Next one. Next slide, please. This bridge at Gillespie Park arrived in 2 75-foot pieces. You can only see the right-hand one there. They were bolted together on site, then 66 tons of steel were hoisted into place before tons of concrete were laid for the surface. For geeks like me, it was a wonder to see. Slide number 7, please. This asphalted path under the Pico power lines, it's called the Nailers Run Trail, has now been backfilled and will be seeded with wildflowers soon, so it'll look a lot more inviting. Next slide, please. Here's the Darby Creek Trail through the Drexeline Shopping Center. It sits atop extensive underground water containments that slow stormwater from causing damage to the Darby Creek. You might be able to notice one right in the center of the slide. One of the iron gates has got a little rust on it there. There are at least 5 that I know of. Next slide, please. Here's the old railroad line, the Newtown Square branch, crossing Nailers Run through an extensive developed area of Upper Darby. You might be able to see how built out everything is here in Upper Darby.
I just wanted to say a few words about how we're developing this roughly 4 miles of trails through Upper Darby. So there's the Nailers Run Trail, and as Steve mentioned, we also are working on trails on Darby Creek. And so the Nailers Run Trail, we broke it up into sections. And so right now we are looking at section 6. And as Steve mentioned, we are densely populated. We have a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of communities that have used the land to the best of their ability over the years. But what is happening is a lot of this development happened on land that we are developing the trail on. And so we, along with the PEC, have been working with PICO on this right of way. So I really wanted to emphasize that the trails that we're about to talk about through Nailers Run are developed on lands that's owned by PICO, but that neighbors have used over the decades. So what does this mean? It means we need to balance people's use of space through these neighborhoods with our desire to develop a trail. And so what we are looking at is balancing the needs of the neighbors with the needs for this trail that will connect all these townships into Philadelphia. This is going to be a major undertaking, and we could talk a lot later about the assistance that PEC gave us to apply for a Department of Transportation grant to reconnect these communities and to understand how we can involve them in this planning, because they have been using the land. They are occupying these right-of-ways, and we do not want to be ones who leave them out and elevate the trail development over their needs. And in essence, that is what equity and engagement really means. So this is going to be a multi-year project that we are very much committed to.
Next slide. Upper Darby is built out, except for along waterways in this old railroad bed. There just is zero room for trails. Despite that, the tree tenders in the Township of Upper Darby have done considerable plantings, especially in Gillespie Park. Next slide, please. Here's some meadow that we might be employing right along the trail. Patrick might be able to mention more about that. Going out to Gillespie Park is really worth the trip. Next slide, please. I think more than 400 trees were planted by the tree tenders with the help of Upper Darby's facilities department, and there are even more on the other side of the bridge at the Swedish Cabin. Friends of Upper Darby Trails will have drone pics and videos uploaded to its Facebook page starting by the middle of this week. And lastly, I wanted to mention there are dozens of people who deserve credit for this work in Upper Darby. But special thank yous go to the PEC, the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, especially Patrick and Xenia. They provided direction, steps, potential pitfalls, grant writing expertise, etc., etc., etc. Finally, two women in particular need to be mentioned here. Former mayor of Upper Darby, Barbara Ann Schaefer, and Elaine Schaefer from the county earn kudos. Without them, none of this gets done.
So I'm Patrick Starr. Those of you who know SpongeBob know that I'm a starfish, but I'll get that out of the way up front. I work for the Pennsylvania Environmental Council. I'm also the chair of the steering committee of the Circuit Trails. As my day job with PEC, we get to work with communities to develop circuit trails. Until this guy came along, we couldn't have done what's happening. Stephen was out there working, trying to make it happen, but finally we had a partner in Upper Darby Township, and that's how we work. I'll just be very quick and just say a couple of things that we contributed here. We've already heard fundraising, all that. There's a regional relationship with PICO that is critical to this. There was a whole kerfuffle with PICO that we've now sorted out about them prioritizing and reviewing and approving trails. Many of our corridors around the region are on PICO right-of-ways, so that's critical. The other thing I just wanted to contribute, PEC conducted on behalf of the Circuit Trails an analysis that was designed to highlight trail segments that serve disadvantaged and underserved communities in our region. Upper Darby jumps to the top of the list, and so it is so exciting for me to be able to now work in a community where this is so meaningful. So just again, kudos to both of these gentlemen and to you, Rich, and all of you. But it's a pleasure just to be here with you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, great. Thanks so much. Up next from Smedley Park Trails and Springfield Trail Improvements, I have Jason Thompson, who is the Vice President, and George Gorman, who is the Secretary of Friends of Smedley Park. So come on up. Jason.
All right, thank you so much. George is gonna stay in the seat for whatever reason, but so he wants to support me from afar. So I know we're living on time, but before we get started here, I just want to say thank you very much for all you guys who already spoke today. Most of you guys have been, mentors from afar for me, and walking in your footprints. So I just want to say thank you. And Elaine, obviously we can all just stay up here and say thank you to you for everything you've done. But anyway, so Rich. So Friends of Smedley, yeah, go ahead. So Friends of Smedley Park, this is the one task I have to make sure is very clear before I leave this podium. But you guys know where Smedley Park is at, I hope. So for those who don't, it's off of Baltimore Pike, right off of the exit of the Blue Route, as you between Nether Providence and Springfield Township. So we get that question a lot, even from people who grew up across the street. So we founded Friends of Smedley Park in 2017. Obviously, 501c3. I'm not going to read from the slides, right? The big thing here is I moved into the township in 1998, and we really didn't have a whole big footprint on hiking much at all. Pedestrian traffic was limited within the township, and so it all came about. I started putting together the Springfield Trail, which at that point had fallen asleep for many years, and through the support of many of you, I would learn everything I needed to get that back in order. Met George Gorman, Kevin Dion. We started the Friends of Smedley Park. So that's what it is. The whole thing is really to bring together the townships and the county to make sure that they understand that we have a resource that's appreciated. So Smedley Park is, if you look at this, is an old map that we have. So when you come down off of the Blue Route onto Baltimore Pike, Smedley Park is actually the home, for those who are really interested in history, about nine of our mills over the years for the 1700s, 1800s reside along there. A lot of our footprints of those mills are still there. A lot of those disappeared when the Blue Route was constructed, unfortunately. But anyway, so we seat up against Swarthmore College. We actually have a connector just right underneath Baltimore Pike over Wallingford Road. But altogether, I think we're now 9 miles with the Orange Trail now. How many altogether? Yeah. So we have 10 miles of MARC trails now with the completion of our most recent edition. So, but anyway, and just like everybody else, stakeholders identification. We have a lot of private owners. Swarthmore College included owns a piece of property just inside Smedley Park that a lot of people between the park and the township. We also have the golf course, Springfield Country Club, that runs up along the outside of us. But either way, started out as a yellow trail, but now we have a bunch of different ones. We actually have through funding, we now have interpretive signs. We've got blazing all along. We do have some hill. I think we have about 300 to 400 feet in elevation gain throughout the park. But the big thing is that we started really out as a nature trail. Then we quickly realized that we had a lot of bikers who were also stakeholders that were looking to try to fit into this whole thing, right? So that was a challenge at the beginning, but we, through the support of, I would say, senior members of the bicycling community, were able to help us get a lot of the younger guys wrangled in and understanding what our challenges were, and we should be supportive of each other, not aggressors. So this is just what we've done as far as the posts. Lots of work for those who know. We've talked a lot about labor of love. We've done a lot. So this is, so we now have posts. We have our, our plaques all along there, the interpretive signs again, bulletin boards. We've done a great job with our scouting community. So we've had Girl Scouts, girls and boys in the scouting community doing their projects throughout. So anyway, these are just some of the examples. And a lot of stuff we're going to have identified already on our trail page. We do have the smedleypark.org, and then we also have activity on Facebook. Friends Smedley Park announced the Springfield Trail. Yellow, orange, red, and green. Those are your big ones. I'm not going to get into much time here, but anyway, we're running out, so I'm just going to try to cruise through here. What's that?
Tell us about Amanda.
So Amanda. So so understanding getting around trails is not easy, right? And there was actually somebody amongst here who joked around about my yellow blazes. For those who've been on the Springfield Trail, I may have overdone it on my yellow blazes. But I think the Inquirer during the COVID, we noticed they called it the Yellow Highway for. But anyway, it was a lot of yellow spray paint. But anyway, Amanda really kind of took our data points and really put them into electronic format and helped us really with the mapping. So fortunately, with Amanda's help, we now have a very intelligent mapping system. We're on all trails, we're on everything else, everything's been updated. But this is our newest trail map. So it's available on our website. You can download it in PDF version, and again, it'll be downloadable through all trails as well. And this is some of the bulletin boards along Paper Mill Road. And I think we also have Pine Ridge, one of their Pine Ridge now, right? Too. Yeah, not yet, and it's going up. So anyway, that's it. Jason Thompson, George Gorman, Kevin Dion was not able to join us, but anyway, thanks for everything you guys do for us. So thanks.
Great, thanks so much. And I like when a trail is really well marked, so I don't think you overdo it. Up next from Haverford Township is my wonderful boss, Brian Barrett, who's going to talk about trail construction progress.
Thank you, Eileen. So I'm going to talk about a couple of projects that are going on in Haverford Township, a couple that we're very excited about. The first one is the Pensy Trail, which is for Upper Darby. It's the Nailers Run Trail. It runs along the old Pensy Railroad. The initial part of the Pensy Trail in Haverford Township that goes from Eagle Road at the YMCA to Manoa Road, where our township building is, was put in 2016 with a DVRPC grant. And then we got a PennDOT grant that was administered by DVRPC to put a bridge over Manoa Road and take that Pensy Trail down to Westchester Pike. It's only a little over a quarter of a mile, but the cost is closing in on $3 million. Obviously, bridges are very expensive, and there was some mass grading, there's some stormwater management that had to go in. But it's a big deal for Haverford Township. And why? Because it opens up an area of the Lanark section on the other side of Darby Road there from the trail. It'll be on the right side of your screen. It opens up easier ways to walk to school, to get to other amenities within Haverford Township. Veterans Field is that green section in the middle, right by the Darby Road, Columbia Road. It gets you to the library, it gets you to the middle school. So really, it reduces car trips in Haverford Township, makes it easier to get around our community. Not only that, but it'll take you up to the YMCA at Eagle Road, and then beyond if we are able to get some of the other things we're thinking about. Work began on the extension. What we're looking at here is that part in the middle there with the black lines through it. That's the bridge that'll go over Manoa Road. That is a 70-foot bridge that'll be put in as one piece. Right now, they're working on the abutments and the retaining walls. I think if you move to the next slide, Rich. What you're looking at here is the trench that's been built right next to the Haverford Township building. We're looking across Manoa Road towards Westchester Pike. That area, those retaining walls will be going in the next few weeks. And then what you're seeing here is the area along Lanark Avenue taking you down towards Vernon Road, which is the far right of the slide here, and then the Lanark Shopping Center, which is right on Westchester Pike. The project took a while. We got the grant in 2018 from PennDOT. Obviously, COVID came in there and a lot of things slowed down construction projects. But now that we're underway, we're hoping that the project will be opening up the bridge across Manoa Road in this section of the trail later this year, hopefully sometime before July 4th. The next, this is the top of the retaining wall. It's funny, as these trails are built, the first leg of the Pensa Trail was pretty easy because it was a flat area of the roadway. There wasn't a lot of infrastructure improvements that we had to do, and that was actually a lot cheaper. The roughly 0.8 of a mile is a lot cheaper than the extension that we're putting in because it didn't involve as much infrastructure improvements, stormwater management, and those retaining walls that you're looking at. Future possibilities for the Pensa Trail. The Pensa Trail, I grew up in Lansdowne, so along the railroad line that when I was a kid, the railroad was actually in existence still, and it went to the bubblegum factory. So as a kid, that was magical. There's a railroad to the bubblegum factory. We actually sometimes would jump on the railroad trains and take them up towards Barclay Square and that area. Anyway, the area beyond Eagle Road is still along that roadbed, and we just did a Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan. Thank you to Delaware County for funding that. And what that railroad bed is, that red line that you're seeing, and this is on the other side of Eagle Road. Eagle Road would be on the right side of the screen. You can't quite see it there. But that railroad bed runs all the way through this neighborhood. The Merion Park neighborhood's above the red line, and the area below the red line is the Linwood area. But this railroad bed would open up, if we were able to get a trail here, would open up all these amenities that you see, the Linwood School, Linwood Park, Paddock Park, and eventually get to crossing Eagle Road to the YMCA, and then the extension of the Pensa Trail that's already there. So this came up in our Parks, Recreation, Open Space Plan when we did our engagement, our public meetings, in our surveys. Trails were a big part of what the community wanted to talk about. They obviously wanted to talk about our parks and our open space, but trails really became a big part of it. And this neighborhood really was advocating for access to a lot of the amenities. Like, you could be a quarter mile from Linwood School and have to take a bus because there's no way to get around. So if we were able to open this up, even if we were only able to do this red link, it would open up these whole neighborhoods to the amenities, to the schools, and reduce a lot of car trips, and just make our community more livable, more walkable, more accessible. So that's a big part of these trail programs and a big part of what we're all trying to do. Now you can go to the next one. The next one we're going to talk about is Darby Creek Trail Extension. The Darby Creek Trail, as it currently exists, begins just below Westchester Pike, right near Barnaby's, and takes you down to Murray Place, which is at the southern end of Haverford Township. The first leg of the trail was constructed in 2013 with the DVRPC grant. Haverford Township purchased a property on Vermont Road in 2021 that was along the line. It was the only piece of property that wasn't owned by the township, and the neighbor had gotten flooded out a couple times, so she was eager to sell it to the township at that point. And that allowed us to, again, have a contiguous green space all the way from basically Westchester Pike to the southern end of Haverford Township. And ultimately, that will connect two parks, Murray Place, McDonald Field, but other parks along the way, Westgate Park, Genther Field. And ultimately, we've talked to DVRPC recently about crossing Vermont Road and extending into Upper Darby, where Upper Darby is connecting parts of the Darby Creek Trail. So I actually met with some people from Upper Darby last year. and also met with some people from DVRPC to figure out how we cross those roads, and that's always significant, getting across some busy roads that don't necessarily have signaling or stop signs, that kind of thing. So we're going to do this, we're trying to do this in phases. We had gotten, for this extension of the Darby Creek Trail, we had gotten a DVRPC grant in 2021 for $300,000. And then we got, in 2022, we got a $500,000 grant from the Greenways program. Again, thank you to Delaware County. And we are seeking additional grant funding. Total costs are estimated to finish this southern extension, which, as you see here, goes from Murray Place, which is towards the bottom of this screen, that green section down to McDonald Field. We're going to start it and do it in 3 phases due to funding reasons and some of the challenges for engineering by getting through some floodplains and some riparian areas that are going to need some buffers to hold up the stream bank. So we're going to see at the very right side of it there, the first leg of this extension is going to take you from McDonald Field's parking lot to the end of McDonald Field. And then we're going to go back and work on the northern section right there where it says Murray Place, and take it where you see the volleyball court there just to the right of where the sign for Murray Place is, and then finish that third section in the middle. This project was slightly delayed because there was some roadway improvements they were trying to do at the corner of Vermont Road and Glendale Road. If anybody who travels there, it's a very tricky intersection. It used to be that you could just drive through if you're continuing right way and to the right on both ways, but that proved to be dangerous. So they're trying to do some, PennDOT gave the township a grant to do some roadway improvements. Unfortunately, COVID happened, and then also construction costs skyrocketed. So $1 million grant ended up in trying to support a $2 million project. So PennDOT put that on the shelf. So because that was going to open up the Vermont Road corridor to pedestrian improvements, sidewalks coming from Steel Road down to Vermont Road and Glendale Road, so people from the Hilltop section and from the Pilgrim Garden section could access the Darby Creek Trail. And we really feel like by doing this first leg that we're doing down McDonald Field, it'll allow the people in the Pilgrim Garden section to get onto the trail, because you can walk the trail, because there's the Radnor Haverford Marple Sewer Authority has a pathway that allows them to maintain the sewer there, the stormwater sewers. So you can walk along there, but we're going to make a paved trail, and this is the extension we're looking at, that sort of red line that I sort of butchered putting onto that thing. So I'm going to wrap up quick. I'm getting the pull here. So the Darby Creek Trail future plans, the trail feasibility study that we did in 2018 took the Darby Creek Trail from here, right outside here. Darby Creek runs right along the border of our property here, going all the way to the southern end of our township. And so we're looking at how we could navigate that Westchester Pike corridor, and some property owners on this side of the Westchester Pike corridor. We was actually looked into the possibility of taking the trail across Darby Creek into Marple, and so Marple people could access it, and we could get around some of those pinch points with some of the residents who weren't as keen to have a trail in their backyard. But we do think by adding these segments and creating this momentum, that people then get on board. And I think that's what a lot of the projects that we've seen here talked about over the last 10 years, where some of the neighbors and some of the residents weren't on board. Once they see the momentum that's generated, like especially when we talked, Upper Darby talked about some of those things, the residents get on board, and it really works out well to keep these projects moving. So I'm going to wrap up by handing off to Elaine Matola, who's going to talk about our Adopt a Trail program and how we're hoping to help maintain these trails.
Great, thanks, Brian. A lot of great things in Haverford Township. So I'll just tell you quickly, we just started a new initiative. It's the Adopt a Trail program. Everyone kind of knows what an Adopt a Trail or Adopt a Park program is. We're creating a framework under which citizens or businesses or any kind of group can actually adopt a certain area, a trail, a park, and take care of it. We're making it a little more formal. We're making them commit to four cleanup days or planting days, 4 days a year. And then we're hoping that really changes, the care, and they'll feel responsibility. But I will just say, we just had our first meeting this week. It was such a positive event. And I just went through the papers because we had everyone fill out an application looking for what space they were interested in, because we wanted them to pick their space because people have certain areas that they're most interested in. So I went through the groups. We had civic organizations, businesses, the Historical Society, we had religious groups, we had sports organizations, scout groups, CYOs, just individuals looking to get involved, and individuals who had special feelings about a certain park or trail. So we really, really had we always have great volunteers in Haverford Township. We can't emphasize that enough, but we were really excited after this meeting. So up next, we have from Middletown Township, we have Jennifer Mall. She is the Director of Parks and Recreation. Jen? And she's with Jamie Jelosian.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Mall. I'm actually going to, we're going to be talking about the Mint Trail, which is a part of the Trail Network. And Jamie Jelosian from our planning department is going to be talking to you.
So the Mint Trail is, like Jennifer said, part of our full trail network, but also part of what you guys have already talked about today, the Chester Creek Trail. So you can go to the next slide actually. One more. There we go. The whole project started with what's called a TRID grant, a Transit Revitalization and Investment District grant, something that's rare for Pennsylvania. There's 2 in the state. This started back in 2018 before I came to Middletown Township. There was contemplated to be a new SEPTA station built called the Wawa Station, and as part of that development and future growth in Middletown, some transit-oriented development tied into basically the acquisition of this TRID district that was created, where they wanted to tie in, the new transit station development with the growth and projected new housing subdivisions coming in to the Baltimore Pike corridor with trails, with more multimodal access, basically. And so through that TRID grant, we got a $4.4 million towards the development, the engineering, the design, the development of a trail. And so with that, we have been working since 2018 with engineers on that design and development, and during that time, the train station has been built. You can see the Franklin Station, which is a housing development next door, has been built, and the trail has been designed during all of that time. So the trail will be the last thing to come in. Well, it got the Mint Trail as part of being on the former Franklin Mint site. So the Franklin Mint site, it's made up of multiple sites, but it's over 170 acres that are being developed in Middletown today. So when I'm saying growth, we're looking at significant growth. Not all of that is housing, of course, but we're looking at a greater influx of population growth, and with that, we wanted to bring trails. And so here's the timeline, basically. So preliminary trail design, final trail design took quite some time. We are finally at the point where in 2023, in December of 2023, we went out to bid for this. And we are looking at construction of the Mint Trail literally any day now. So we're really excited. The bid award came in. Here's the location of the trail. There was obviously a larger trail contemplated with all of the housing that was being put in. We are choosing to do this section in black bold first because it will connect to the station directly, which as part of the train station development, it kind of got started by SEPTA, which was really great. It also runs along what's called our sewer interceptor, the sewer expansion project that got put in during the time that the train station was also getting developed. So a lot of things were happening at one time. We capitalized on that, and we're kind of taking this first chunk because it's the low-hanging fruit, and also because design of trails, as you guys know, is super, it's complicated. This is an easy spot for us to kind of go in. So it's less than a mile. It's probably 3/4 of a mile in total. And it's going to run from the Wawa train station and directly south along the creek and along the sewer interceptor line. And then there, as part of this, and it all started in 2019, the very first thing that happened was, and I kind of forgot about mentioning this, but the train station was getting developed, the tracks were going in, and as part of that, a coordination between the county and SEPTA and the township had to happen first to create a pedestrian culvert that would go in under the SEPTA track first to enable the entire connection from the train station to the existing terminus of the Chester Creek Trail at Lenai Road, which is 1.5 miles in total. So we're taking that first chunk, the Mint Trail, and then our future expansion will be, we locally call it the Lenai Trail. It will be the extension of the Chester Creek Trail to that pedestrian culvert that's already under the tracks, that was put in before the tracks got laid. So it will complete and connect the Chester Creek Trail from Lenai Road, where it terminates right now, 1.5 miles north to that Wawa train station. And it's going to connect a lot of residents and hopefully bring some parking to that trail where it's needed, and also, you know, bring a little bit more of multimodal access to residents in the area to access the train station. So just a bigger project there. Oh, we always ask about funding. How does this happen? So the TRID started it all. The TRID was the emphasis behind getting things going. Delco Greenways has been really critical for us to bringing this project to fruition, because $4.4 million sounds like a lot, but once you start to engineer and you figure out it's not a lot of money, you need more funding. And so then Delco Greenways has been helping with trail construction, trail acquisition, and then for that final piece, which we call the Lenai Trail, the final extension, or the last 3/4 of a mile gap that we'll have to close, we are still seeking TASA grant funding, which will probably be another couple of million. And all told, we aren't sure how much we're really going to be investing, but all told, we have been, you know, cobbling things together, and we will get it done. But it's going to take a lot of funding from a lot of different sources to do all of that. And that's all I have. Yeah.
Thanks, Jennifer and Jamie. Jamie Delosian is actually the president of our park board, and she is a tremendous help to our department. She really is. I have her on speed dial. Okay, so up next for project updates across the entire county, it's someone who everyone here definitely knows, Bob Thomas.
Okay, thank you very much. Alrighty, let's go to the next slide. Right, just a very quick update. This trail is also called the Eastern Arc of Delaware County, the Valley Forge Heights Refuge, named after 2 federal places, so we can go after federal lands access grants. What's happening now, the Radnor Trail, of course, is open, and there's a lot of pressure to extend that. So we're looking at the township right now is we're negotiating our contract to do the final design on the next section of the Radnor Trail, heading south towards Haverford. And I've been tasked as of yesterday to speak with you about a temporary trail linking with Haverford to get that darn thing open. Okay. Alrighty, that was from Dennis Capella, who sends his greetings, and Steve Norsini from Radnor Township. Next slide. So here we are on the Radnor Trail. Next. And this is some of the work that has been going on, and we have more to do. Environmental, when we had our geologists take a look, there was arsenic that's in there from the railroad ties or who knows whatever. So there's been a lot of work going on. You wonder why this takes so long of going down and doing core borings and testing them and so forth and so on, and kind of basically trying to get a topographic map in three dimensions of where's the contamination, and will we take out the contaminated soil or will we cap it? And we've been doing all of that, and recommendations have been made. Now we're also working on the west side of Radnor Chester Road, because the township commissioners said, we have a ramp up at Radnor Chester. We're going to build a culvert, whatever it takes to keep this trail as a grade separated trail. And God bless them for making that decision, for obviously the county putting more funds in, and like other expensive things, this will happen, and that's what it takes. Next. Further down, I just got off the train here this morning coming out and rode my bike. Further down, we're looking, of course, still, and now the big thing that's happened is, what's not happening is the extension of SEPTA to King of Prussia, which means that all their concern about using the extra tax spaces that were built into this line in 1906, right, are now still there. This is the walkway coming down to the Haverford station, and it's sitting right where the other two tracks were intended to go. All the bridges are longer enough to provide for that. So this is basically saying, well, what would this look like? Well, here it is, 10-foot wide trail, which is a pedestrian access that would continue all the way down to Cobbs Creek Park. Next. And this just shows how the trail goes around Cobbs Creek Park, serves many communities, Yeadon, Upper Darby, many of the boroughs, Darby, et cetera, all the way right down to the East Coast Greenway. Next. The Lansdowne Darby Creek Bridge study we're doing for the borough of Lansdowne. The developer who's on the Clifton Heights on the other side is advertising, well, move into my renovated buildings and walk to the train station at Gladstone. Unfortunately, you need hip boots to do it today. So we've just completed the draft of a alignment study of showing Broadway Avenue, which is a relatively quiet street, being extended as a pedestrian bicycle bridge across to we've had our civil engineer and our landscape and environmental people look at this. It's very doable. This would give access of all those folks to the Darby Creek Trail. In our study, we also identified a location down at Alden. They have a parkland there, the Darby Creek and Lowe's Run land. From the community, you can walk right down trails to the creek. You can't get across, again, without hip boots. So that would be another potential location for a bridge. The other location was just going underneath SEPTA, and being a former SEPTA planner, I have a good sense of what that would take. And right now, we've made a recommendation, which is being reviewed by the Borough Council, for the Broadway Avenue crossing. Next step, we will overview retaining civil engineer to do the preliminary and final design, going for funding, getting it done. This was because one reason this happened is that the Delco Greenway grants have a lot of wonderful things. One is no match, which then doesn't scare away a lot of the smaller or less financially endowed communities. The other is involvement of private citizens. So the developer here got together with the people in Lansdowne and said, look, I really need this, and et cetera, and of course it'll benefit tons of people. This is just, in our study, this is the Darby Creek Trail now. It would be widened. This is the SEPTA Bridge, and our crossing point is just north of here at Bonnie's Wonder Gardens. The 9/11 trail has come up several times. There's a map over here showing it connecting the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, using the Great Allegheny Passage to get up to the town of Garrett, and then finding its way across the state. Our firm had the job. I'd never gotten a trail project that was 300 miles long. And it came out, our fee was about 67 cents a mile to do this. But in Delaware County, you've heard the 9/11 trail, it does co-locate with East Coast Greenway, whatever. But because it is now part of the National Park System, it brings in other funding. There is also so many people. It has a really rich, when I say rich, I mean rich in talent and connections and education. People of a lot of different backgrounds who look at the memorial aspect, and all the people on the board, I'm on the board of advisors, really, this is getting done. And obviously working with all the municipalities, all these support groups and all the existing trails as part of what we're doing. So I co-chair the implementation committee along with Brett Hollern. Some of you may know him from the Pennsylvania Environmental Council. And we're looking to work with everyone in the 6 communities as well as with the township, with the county to see the disc gets done.
Let's get it implemented.
Yep, that's my job. John Heinz, that's just a picture. I think that's one of the tours we did with East Coast Greenway. This person, I think it's Andy Strauss, he is not abusing the turtle, he's just looking at it. Okay, Brandywine Trail. Way out, somewhere near Wyoming and Montana, is the west end of Delaware County. When you look across the Brandywine Creek, you will see herds of buffalo and elk and so forth. Actually, you do see into Chester County. And the Brandywine Trail section, we've been retained by the Brandywine Conservancy. They have a whole network of trails many people aren't aware of that go to Brandywine Battlefield State Park. They go to the studios of Wyatt's. And we're also looking now to go through the Brandywine Foundation lands. Those are the lands where Andy and Betsy Wyeth actually lived. And we're working with people who knew them. And looking to to improve the trail or build a new section as a multi-use trail from Chad's Ford at the Brandywine Museum, about a mile and such north to Britain's Bridge Road. And we're doing an analysis of that right now. And that's a piece of the existing Brandywine Trail, which is primarily a hiking trail.
So it's a grass strip.
What's that?
It's a mowed grass.
It is mowed grass or crushed or earth. Because it's a circuit trail, what we're looking at is what works as a surface for all people and is also multi-use. And this is in the Wyeth property. This is the mill, the tail race of the mill, just beautiful country. And when we took a walk here with their superintendent, some of the people from the Conservative had never even been in here. We were given a tour, and we said, well, should we stick at the edge of Mill Creek Road? He says, oh no, it's just, when I walk into town and go to Oh So Sweet, he says, I walk right down the mill race. That's where we should go. So there's a lot of interest, but the board has to look at it. And they're going through a process. Betsy Wyeth passed away only 3 years ago. Now they're doing the same thing that happened at Stoneleigh. The Hodges left it. But what do you do when someone leaves you in a state? You have to figure out where the toilets are going to be and the parking and how you get there and all that. So they're going through all that now, but that will happen. Last thing, we've been working, and Delco, of course, has been very generous here as well. Rose Valley has a trail network. If you haven't enjoyed it, it's kind of secret. I'm not sure, but there are no signs that say no trespassing. So if you know where it is, you can follow it. And people use it a lot to go to the swim club, kids go. But the big problem they have is Rose Valley Road. When you look at old pictures, people are walking along it, there's a horse and buggy. But now everybody's doing 45 or 50, and there's a shoulder that's about 2 feet wide. And yet all these roads that connect to it, I've seen a mother come out with 3 kids on little bicycles, and they get on Rose Valley Road for a quarter mile to go visit their friends in the next street. And I don't know what the death count is, but it's terrifying, and it's really not good. So the mayor and several people, it's really our client, is looking, how do you take this road and get a side path? Guess what we discovered here? Everyone told us there's only a 33-foot PennDOT right-of-way, and well, somebody did a little looking and discovered that there was an ultimate right-of-way that had been created when there was a subdivision 50 years ago everyone had forgotten about. So we went to see some of the property owners and said, well, what kind of agreement will we have to negotiate? He said, well, actually, we don't have to negotiate any because this is a public right-of-way, but we will talk and work closely with everyone, to see that what we do, is sensitive to what you want. People have told us we want this trail to be good enough that we can walk to the train station in good shoes. So it has to serve everybody. And the fact that it connects right with the Moylan Rose Valley Station and the other trails in the nature community is really important. Next, I was just about done here. That's it. Okay.
Quick question. I love that you championed the Forge to Refuge over and over and over again.
Yes.
What can be done to actually move it along? Talk about stuff it would solve a lot
Yeah, I think I think what you heard earlier, Peter. No project gets done without a champion, right? And while I've been an advocate and I've worked on sections of it all over, getting a real alliance together of all the municipalities. The steps are plain. Get all the groups that are working on it to become members of a Valley Forge Heights Refuge Trail Alliance, from Driffin and Upper Merion, and all the way down to Tinicum. The second thing would be to go to each of the municipalities to get a letter of commitment, or of support. When I learned this back in 1974, I was getting in the trails with the Sierra Club, and we formed the Philadelphia Valley Forge Trail Committee. That's the Schuylkill River Trail. Job one, we went to every municipality. We even have a letter of support from Mayor Frank Rizzo of Philadelphia. You can see it. So with that, then, because so much of it is not unique, right? All the pieces of it are parts of Philadelphia Parks and Recreation, parts of John Heinz, parts of the Haverford system, Radnor Trail, townships. Each part would end up there would not be a need for a separate organization. Every piece of it is just simply connecting all the dots that already exist. That's it. I'd be glad to talk to you more.
Any other questions?
We're already past noon, but I do want to throw it open to some questions. We run out of time every year for this. So if you're willing to stick around, we can do some questions and comments from the audience. Raise your hand. Eileen will find you with a mic.
Here you go.
There's a hand, there's a mic.
Nicholas Penzaston Township. I have 3 questions. First off, is there any litter cleanup events coming around? Because since I'm in Anson, I typically use the upper Chester Creek Trail, and I notice a lot of litter.
Peter might have an answer. The Darby Creek Valley Association does those along Darby and Cobbs Creek. Crum Creek also holds cleanups. They're a watershed group.
Yeah, go to dcba.org, and every April there is a cleanup all up and down the Darby and Cobbs, and there's probably 20, 30 plus groups in different locales that do cleanups.
But you're talking Chester Creek?
The upper Chester Creek
Oh,
Trail.
sorry.
That's the
Don't
question.
know.
Find out if there's a Chester Creek watershed group, a conservancy group. Here we go. CRC Watershed. Check with the CRC Watershed. Find them online.
Those are more around right along the banks of the creek. I was talking about the paved path itself.
Chester Creek Trail has a Friends group, so get on the website.
Okay, the Friends of the Chester Creek.
My second question is about invasive plant mitigation. Like these green trails, they act as wildlife corridors, but I've noticed, especially again on the upper Chester Creek Trail, an infestation of lots of invasive plants, and that really degrades their potential as corridors for the wildlife.
Yeah, the invasives have been there. What's happening is now that there are trails, people are seeing that. And they're saying, why are these trees all covered in vines? What are all these funny little yellow flowers in the spring? And it's motivated more and more people having the trails there to start to do cleanups and invasive removal and plantings. Brian in Haverford here, they set up volunteer days and put up 25 openings on, Sign Up Genius, and they fill up every time with volunteers willing to come and remove invasives and cut down vines and plant trees and shrubs. The trails have really fostered a lot of that. The same thing in Upper Darby with the tree tenders along the trails.
So my question is, are you doing any big group events, or are you kind of...
There is no one group. This is all a bunch of different people in different groups for different trail areas and different municipalities. You need to find what's going on in your township or your borough or your watershed. I don't know about your particular creek area. Okay, other questions? comments, updates for anybody?
Okay, right over here. Carly?
Carly.
Hi, I can also speak to some of the comments that this gentleman just had. I am from, sorry to my back to people. I'm from the Chester Ripley Chrome Watershed Association, and we focus in Aston, and also we have a total of 42 municipalities. Some Chester County, but mainly Delaware County. So we have a huge chunk of Delco, and we do invasive management, tree planting, and the streams cleanup coming up in March. So I will give more information about the streams cleanup. It's March 16th, and we have a couple of site coordinators here. So we'll have 35 sites throughout Delaware County, and last year we pulled out 40,000 pounds of trash in one morning. So I'll make sure that people have my information. If you want to go to crcwatersheds.org, this answers your question that you just had, sir. So you can get in touch with me. And then also I wanted to put this out. We work with Charles Groups a lot. We have funding for riparian buffer plantings, and we love to partner. So crcwatersheds.org, get in touch with us, and we're always looking for solutions.
Okay, maybe you two can get together after the session and talk.
Any other questions? Okay.
I have an announcement, quick announcement.
Hold on, we got one in the back. We'll bring the mic to you when you're ready.
I just want to say thank you. This is awesome. I moved to Delaware County last year, and it was amazing to come and see all this stuff. It was amazing to see all these groups working together and collaborating. So I want to say thank you to the organizers for putting it together. This is an amazing event.
Well, thank you. Come on up here. We thank everybody for coming. I'll point out to you on our havtrail.com website, havtrail.com website, we have all the past sessions and presentations and videos from previous summits. There's a lot more information back there. All the stuff about the bikeways in Lansdowne, there was a presentation last year that described them all.
Okay, this is just related, just in case there's anybody here that's into biking. Philadelphia Bike Expo, March 16th and 17th at the Convention Center. I'm just helping to promote it. I have a bunch of these posters back there. If you can put one up at your kiosk at your trail, or a bike shop nearby, or any big community bulletin boards, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else?
Gentleman in the back, is that on? The gentleman in the back beat me to it, but as a representative of the Circuit Trails Coalition, I just want to say how unique this gathering is, and again, kudos to Rich and others who put it together. I'm not aware of any other county-based group that meets and has done so for 12 years in our region, and we would do a lot to help support other counties to do what you're doing here today. So I just wanted to really bring that to light and say this is very special. I will admit something, Rich. Sometimes adversity breeds a response, and I know that maybe the leadership of the county wasn't so pro-trails until a certain person sitting right in front of me came along. But you're a real model for the region, and I just wanted you to hear that from the.
Okay, well, thank you. You heard Chris Leswing say that they're looking to set up a similar trail summit for people in the Schuylkill River corridor. I mean, that is the spine of the entire circuit, and they're just getting around to doing this sort of thing. It certainly benefits everybody. As I told him when he came up at the break, the first summit we had was Peter and I and Brian's predecessor, Tim Denny, sitting here in the room saying, let's hope people come, and more than 3 people interested in trails in Haverford Township. And it's turned into this. Go ahead.
Well, I don't want to hurry anybody out of here, take the time. I just wanted to mention that as you leave, please take some fruit and donuts. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay. You want to give
Okay, make this the last question.
Okay, and this will be the last question.
My final question is, given the ravages of climate change, all these trail construction, are you factoring in the changes, especially extreme weather events and the increases of them to the construction of these trails?
I know we are. On the Darby Creek Trail, it floods quite a bit. We had a 4-inch rain event just a few months ago. And Mary Place floods every couple of years. We've had 3 100-year floods in the last 10 years. So in the alignment of that trail, where it's going to go through McDonald Park, we're looking at putting it up by the road, not right along the stream line, the bank of the stream, just for that reason. Trying to get them on. One of the things is trails if they're built well, can take a flooding, and when the waters go away, the trail's still there. Might need to be hosed off, but it's still there. And it's a good use for that kind of area. There's also a way to use trails where if you elevate them slightly, they form a water retention area. And I'll point out that all of our work in the township, not only the trails and the parks, but general construction now requires a lot of stormwater management.